Blair King. All council members are in attendance. We'll have a roll called shortly. We have Chief and a couple other members of staff and our Deputy City Manager here. Thank you all for being here this evening. And our City Clerk, Christine Brown, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Christine Brown, City Clerk. Please state for the record if you are present after I call your name. Mayor Matthews.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Quitzland.
Present.
Councilmember Dietz.
Present.
Councilmember Fentroy Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Hytopoulos.
Present.
Councilmember Moriwaki.
Present.
Councilmember Schneider.
Present.
Thank you.
And let's say the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, the Republic, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'll read the Suquamish land acknowledgement. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. Chief Seattle, 1854. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is within the ancestral territory of the Suquab, people of clear salt water, Suquamish people, expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers. The Suquab live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquab live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Okay, and approval of the agenda. We have Councilmember Dietz.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Great.
Second.
Thank you. Motion was made by Councilmember Dietz, seconded by Councilmember Fentroy Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, our agenda is approved. Do we have any conflicts of interest this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to presentations. And we have one this evening. It's a proclamation declaring the month of July 2025 as Disability Pride Month. And I'll read the proclamation. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, declaring July 2025 as Disability Pride Month. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of and prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities. And whereas the ADA mandates that public accommodations meet accessibility requirements and that employers provide reasonable accommodations for persons with disabilities. And whereas the disability justice movement recognizes the intersection of disability with identities such as race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, education, and economic background. And whereas the identity of disability is inclusive of physical, intellectual, developmental, emotional, sensory, acquired, chronic, device-assisted, invisible, undiagnosed disabilities, and more. And whereas the Disability Pride Movement reminds us that our society was not designed for people with disabilities. Instead, it is a culture with policies and practices that continue to marginalize them. The Disability Pride Movement also celebrates the resourcefulness and creativity of people with disabilities who survive and thrive despite ableism, bias, and discrimination, and leads with the truth that disability should be in no way diminish one's right to independence, self-determination, or engagement with society. And whereas, according to the 2022 American Community Survey, 15% of Kitsap County residents and 8% of Bainbridge Island residents are living with a disability. And whereas Bainbridge Island is home to many individuals and organizations who support and provide advocacy for people with disabilities. And whereas the City of Bainbridge Island is in the midst of its ADA transition plan and strives to improve its public accommodations, community engagement, and cultural climate to be more inclusive of and inviting to people with disabilities by ensuring their voices are heard and needs are understood. Now, therefore, I, Ashley Matthews, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim July 2025 as Disability Pride Month in the City of Bainbridge Island and encourage all residents to share in the responsibility of creating a community that is safe and welcoming for all people, regardless of ability. And I would love to present this to representatives from Vitalize Kitsap and Stevens House.
It's on. Good evening, members of the City Council and everyone here tonight. My name is Matilda Tulin, and I'm the Executive Director at Stevens House. We're a nonprofit that serves a vibrant, diverse group of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities on the island and in Kitsap County, each with their own unique strengths, needs, and ways of moving through the world. July is Disability Pride Month, and it marks the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, signed into law in 1990. The ADA was a huge milestone in the fight for civil rights. It affirmed that people with disabilities deserve equal access to work, public life, and community. But Disability Pride Month is more than just a law. It's about celebrating disability as a meaningful, valid part of human diversity. It's about honoring the dignity of disabled people, rejecting the idea that they need to be fixed, and recognizing that everyone deserves to be seen, valued, and included just the way they are. It is also an opportunity for us to educate the broader public, to raise awareness about the barriers disabled people still face, and to celebrate the individual stories, the strengths, and contributions of people with disabilities. When we share these stories, we not only challenge the outdated perceptions, but we also build empathy, understanding, and connection across our community. That message feels especially important to us right now at Stevens House in this day and age. Even though it's 34 years since the ADA was passed, many of the same barriers still exist, whether it's physical spaces that aren't designed for people with disabilities, systems that don't work for everyone, or policies that don't reflect people's real lives. And with essential programs like Medicaid facing political uncertainty, the right to live independently and with dignity is once again being questioned. That's why this proclamation matters so much to us. It's not just symbolic, it's a statement of values that signals that we're on the right side of history. It says that people with disabilities belong, that pride isn't reserved for just a selected few, but for everyone. And for our members at Stevens House and their families, and so many others in the disability community who had to fight simply to be included and to exist, that kind of recognition means more than words can express. So thank you from all of us at Stevens House for honoring Disability Pride Month on Bainbridge, and for continuing to make our community more inclusive, more educated, more aware, more welcoming, and more for just everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have public comment. In-person public comment is accepted at this time on any topic of public interest. Each commenter will have 3 minutes to speak. Public comment is not taken on individual agenda items during the meeting, so this is your chance. Okay, first is Kim McCormick Osmond.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. My name is Kim McCormick Osmond, and I am speaking on behalf of Hager Scribner Properties and Town and Country Markets. These two local entities are the largest property holders in downtown Winslow, including TNC and the Orchard, and have serious concerns about Agenda Item 8D, the proposal to consider the economic feasibility of paid parking in the downtown corridor. The proposal in your packet from RCW is to develop a revenue forecast model to examine revenue generation for conversion of downtown public parking to paid parking. HSP and TNC would like to suggest that the first order of business should be to determine whether paid parking will provide any useful economic benefits to downtown merchants and persons shopping there, and to assess whether those benefits, if any, outweigh negative impacts. First, HSP and TNC strongly believe that paid parking will deter Bainbridge residents from coming downtown to shop, eat, and enjoy everything downtown has to offer, to the detriment of businesses and all Bainbridge Islanders. The 2018 Bainbridge Island Downtown Parking Strategy Report includes 7 strategies for improving parking availability in Winslow. Paid parking is not one of them. Second, the 2018 report noted that 92% of available parking in downtown is located off-street in public or private off-street lots. The largest private lots are owned by TNC and HSP to provide parking for their customers who shop at their businesses. Parking by non-patrons is already a serious issue for both TNC and HSP, and implementing paid public parking certainly will make it worse. Finally, and most importantly, if Winslow has a parking availability problem, it should be addressed using the strategies outlined in the 2018 parking report to produce additional parking capacity. Requiring people to pay for parking on public streets downtown will not address the availability problem and will only exacerbate existing parking problems to businesses like TNC and the Orchard that have off-street private parking for their customers. Thank you for considering these significant concerns associated with any proposal to convert public parking in Winslow to paid parking.
Thank you. Next is Ron Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. I'm here this evening. My name is Ron Erickson, by the way. I'm here this evening to talk about the closure beginning July 16 of the head of Eagle Harbor. I live on the south end, and I travel this route 2 and 3 times a day with regularity and have for a long time. It was, I think, about a year and a half ago or so when we saw a sign that indicated there was going to be an expansion of the bike lane in front of Greenlight Garage that's run by Nick, a young man that we all have a lot of affection for. At that point in time, there was a lot of concern about that. I think in part because we saw the ineptitude, if you will, of the bike activity on Eagle Harbor as at the head of the Eagle Harbor, that activity, and so there wasn't I don't think a very receptive response to doing more bike lane work of that same variety. Recently, we received the notice that there was going to be a closure at the head of Eagle Harbor. And I have to say candidly, it was a great surprise because we'd all been aware of the work on the bike lane, or at least the potential work on the bike lane. But none of us on the south end that I've talked to had been aware of the closure, and the closure for almost 4 months, necessitating circumnavigating, if you will, going up to High School Road and around. So I have a lot of concerns about that. I think my primary concern is process, how the city, Mr. King and his staff, how they went about making the decision to do this, the engagement of people on the south end, what kind of community meetings were held, what was the process you went through? And in addition, what was the process that you went through to make the decision in the first instance to expand it from a bike lane to something more fulsome, requiring the closure of the entirety of the road? For example, was there a fish count? Do we know how many fish go up this tidal area? Was there a bike count? What kind of data do we have that allowed you to make the decision you're making? One of the things that also concerns me, and I think there's sort of a tendency, if you will, in government to make sure you spend the money you've got. You've got some grant money and there's a compulsion to spend that money. But I think there are a lot of choices that could be made about how that money could be spent and how it could be better spent, whether it's expanding bike lanes along Fletcher Bay Road or other things where there are some real, I got 30 seconds left. Anyway, big concern is process. I think the process was abhorrent in this case. And I think the people that drove that process bear responsibility for it. That includes you.
Thanks, Ron. Next is Ross Warner.
Mayors and City Councilor, my name is Ross Warner. I live in Eagle Harbor, so I would just like to speak a little bit as a resident of the harbor on the mooring ball and the increased rates and the services that we have. First off, I'm excited you guys get to see a little bit of our lifestyle. We live very differently. I do believe we're very good caretakers of the environment for those who have lived aboard. I've lived aboard now for 7 years throughout the U.S., primarily in the Great Lakes, Western Rivers, Florida coast, and East Coast. I've traveled about 25,000 nautical miles on boats, and the reason I am here is actually because of your mooring balls. Believe it or not, I traveled through Marathon, Florida, and I found a wonderful community there. And I've been in search of something like that ever since. And there are only, I think, two that I'm aware of, this being one of them. And when I had an opportunity for transfer from my main job here to Seattle, I did. And I've been on the waiting list for 3 years, and I'm a recent member of the Open Water Marina. Now, one thing I would just like to bring up, I actually am a proponent of having a split rate so that we can get some of our members. We have a lot of anchor outs that are in boats that are maybe not as good as others, and this would be a great opportunity to bring them into the fold. So I really do appreciate that. Now, as far as the rate increase goes, my one point of contention here is we're essentially looking at, for people like me who can afford it, we're looking at about a 200% increase over 2 years. And that's fine. However, this is the only marina where we're lacking the basic service of laundry. So for someone like me, I now keep my other marina because I don't have access to a washer and dryer. And as you guys may be aware, the city of Bainbridge does not have any coin-operated laundry. Now my record is in Washington, D.C. I walk 2.5 miles to coin-operated laundry, but we can't do that here. So that's something that is a large barrier to entry, regardless of if you can afford the higher rate or not. Laura has been wonderful to work with. We now have a nice mailbox. So the two things that I would like to see if we're going to go forward with the increased rate would be access to a laundry facility and access to a place where we can have packages delivered. We were only able to get U.S. Postal Service packages, which is common in a situation like this, but we all could use a place for our Amazon packages, UPS, FedEx, whether it be boat parts or things like that. So I respectfully ask that you guys look into that. And I think if I had my wish, we wouldn't raise the rates until we have a plan that would allow us to have access to laundry. And then I am more than happy to pay a higher rate and a different rate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next, Cray Drake.
Mayor Matthews, Deputy Mayor Quitsland, council members, thank you very much. I am Gray Drake. I'm the Executive Director of Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network, or BARN. And I'm here tonight to thank you for your ongoing support of cultural organizations on Bainbridge Island and to ask you to avoid de facto defunding of culture on Bainbridge Island. If approved as proposed, the city's cultural funding would remain at $150,000 per year. That is a number that has been static, again, if approved, for 5 cycles or 10 years, from 2018 through 2027. The world has changed a lot since 2018. In that time, CPI inflation has increased by 29%. Employment costs, which are a big part of a cultural organization's operating budget, have increased even more. I think our public safety organization here on Bainbridge Island is similar. About $6 million of the $7 million public safety budget is salary and benefits. That's a 50% increase from 2018, when that amount was just $4 million. The broader funding landscape for cultural institutions has also changed. For example, in April, DOGE, I can't believe I'm saying this sentence, in April, DOGE rescinded an NEH grant that made it possible for BEMA to host cultural lecturers for the Speakers Bureau program. The message is clear. If we value these programs and institutions, it's up to us to provide local support. I work in arts and culture because I believe these things are worth doing for their own sake. I also recognize that they make good civic and business sense. Recent research from SMU shows that Washington communities with better funding for arts and culture have higher voter participation rates, higher rates of volunteerism, and fewer seniors living alone. SMU also found better income equality, a healthier local creative economy, and higher per capita tax revenue. Tonight, I encourage the council to do 3 things. First, consider tonight's cultural funding item separate from the consent agenda, so the council has the opportunity to adequately discuss this issue. Second, include cultural funding among the city's top priorities, and avoid a de facto reduction in support by setting a 2-year funding amount of $400,000 or $200,000 a year to keep pace with CPI inflation, or $450,000 per biennium, $225,000 a year to keep pace with actual employment costs. Third, please approve the excellent RFP and scoring matrix developed by the committee and move forward with this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Glynis Cowdery.
Good evening. My name is Glynis Cowdery. I'm the chair of the Public Art Committee, president of Arts and Humanities Bainbridge, and served on the steering committee for the Community Art Plan. I was so excited when Kobe decided to complete a plan for the arts. I moved from a city where I served as an arts commissioner for over 10 years. They had a robust art program and a strategic plan for that program that I helped facilitate. I have seen firsthand the value a plan can add to a city's art program. I know there will be future opportunities to speak specifically about the elements of the plan, so I'll hold my comments on those until that time. What I want to address tonight is the process for the plan. I believe there was a huge missed opportunity in the development of the plan. At no time were the staff and the steering committee together at the same time to discuss what was working with the arts on the island, what needs improvement, and more especially work together for a vision moving forward. In a nutshell, the process was not a collaboration. Rather, the steering committee was asked to respond to specific elements or ideas that were proposed by staff in collaboration with the consultant. This process did not take advantage of the expertise of our community. And to be honest, the attendance at the steering committee meetings was not consistent and varied over time and waned over time, most likely due to the fact that it was clear that decisions were being made without the need for our input. It became pretty clear that there was an agenda, but not one being driven by the community, unfortunately. I support the City Council in circulating this plan with the arts organizations on the island, but I request 2 things when doing so. First, be clear when you make your motion tonight. Are you just circulating the plan? Or are you asking for feedback about what is in the plan? And what kind of feedback are you asking for? Can there be a community arts summit, like suggested in the plan, to share ideas and feedback regarding the proposed plan? Getting the community expertise in one room to collaborate and make the plan even better. And secondly, prior to sharing the plan with the organizations, can you please include Appendix A, the revised public art policy referred to on page 41 of the plan, so that all the organizations have the information they need for responding to the plan. I look forward to working with Kobe to strengthen the arts on the island. And before I close, I want to thank you so much for your support of the Creative District markers. I hope you've had an opportunity to see them. We've already gotten such amazing, wonderful feedback from the community. They're beautiful, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Next is Erica Borg.
Good evening. My name is Erica Borg, and I'm Chair of the Economic Development Committee of the Bainbridge Island Chamber of Commerce. Our committee is eager to get to work in a formal way with the City of Bainbridge Island to support better data and meaningful engagement on economic development. The committee is well established with members from a variety of business sectors and experts who meet monthly to discuss major island needs and economic development opportunities. Meetings are held on the second Friday of each month at 11 a.m. And we're pleased to see that the Chamber's economic development proposal is on your consent agenda tonight, and we hope you approve it. As you consider it, I thought I'd share with you our committee's principles for Bainbridge economy. 1, we seek to prioritize equitable and inclusive economy where small businesses, families, immigrants, people with disabilities, young people, and people of all races and backgrounds can thrive. 2, we seek to support fair and equitable housing in order to ensure families and entrepreneurs continue to see Bainbridge as a place to both work and call home. We support infrastructure investments to ensure Bainbridge Island continues to be an attractive place to work, live, and play. We seek collaborative approaches to community concerns as business owners who live and work on the island. We seek to encourage systems alignment and coordination between public agencies such as transit, school district, city, utilities, county, and state. We seek to conserve and profile the scenic nature of our island, including trees, trails, parks, and shoreline alongside local economic growth. For us, the privilege of working and living on Bainbridge is intertwined and a way of life we hope will continue to thrive. I love that the owners of many of my favorite spots, from Bay Hay to Wilderness, are also my neighbors. Our businesses include creative entities, farms, and wineries. They include mostly small business, with a majority of businesses less than 5. To me, it is evidence of the unique and enduring island nature of our community, this preponderance of small and local businesses. So I want to thank you for your time and investment in Bainbridge business tonight.
Thank you. Next is Ron Peltier.
Good evening, council members. Hope you're all doing well tonight. City manager, city attorney. I'm going to follow up on your discussion you had 2 weeks ago on new rules for the city advisory committees, specifically the rule regarding not allowing 2 people from the same household to serve on a committee. During your discussion, there were some, I would say, unfortunate and disrespectful comments made about 2 hardworking and highly qualified members of an advisory committee. There was no need to mention their names, but they were. And I think it was a breach of due process to them. Councilmember Milwaukee, you mentioned that you believe that if an ordinary person or a common person, something to that effect, perceived that there was something amiss, that there must be some ethical issue involved. If I got that wrong, you can please correct me later. I think you're alluding to the appearance of fairness doctrine. Appearance of fairness doctrine doesn't apply to members of advisory committees. It applies to you and the hearing examiner during quasi-judicial hearings. Quasi-judicial hearings are required for certain types of decisions. One decision that's required for is specific rezones of a single piece of property. The idea behind the appearance of fairness doctrine is to ensure that decisions are made by impartial decision makers. Part of the process involves disclosing ex parte communications. It would be communications between the subject of an action and the decision makers. Such communications can affect impartiality. 2 years ago, you made a decision to upzone property for a local church. You used an ordinance instead of the process that's included in your municipal code, the site-specific rezone, which is a quasi-judicial process. It would have required all of you to disclose ex parte communications, and I know there were many of them. It may have made it even difficult for you to actually pass or to finalize that decision because there were so many ex parte communications. I know because I was on the city council and I received those communications even back when I was on council. So I think it was a mistake, some of the comments that were made about 2 hardworking advisory committee members. They were unneeded comments. I think they're targeted by the ordinance that you're going to probably pass, limiting, prohibiting people from the same household serving on a committee. So I hope that all you will kind of bone up on the appearance of fairness doctrine. You didn't follow it when you recently upzoned property for a church, and that was contrary to state law. So thank you for listening and have a great meeting.
Thank you. Next is Charlie Kratzer.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Kratzer. I live on the South End. I'm also going to speak a little bit about the meeting a couple weeks ago because my 3 minutes just weren't enough at that time. In fact, not even close. So first off, the 1 member per household rule from that meeting. In the agenda item in the packet for that meeting, there's a quote that in 2024, City Council Ad Hoc Committee presented recommendations to the City Council. Who was on that ad hoc committee? And are the recommendations public? I don't recall ever seeing it. It'd be nice if these sort of discussions were done in public so that the people know how decisions are being made. Also within that agenda packet, there's something from the Washington City's Insurance Authority requirements, including the following, quote, prohibiting employees from volunteering in a capacity similar to their employment. Well, it would have to be very similar, in fact, the same item, because, for example, if you have a civil engineer with expertise in civil engineering, you would want to be on a committee that's talking about construction related things. So on the surface, that looks to be kind of absurd because you're looking for people with a certain expertise. So that should be trimmed down to, they can't work on the exact same contract or issue topic. So, also, where is the conflict of interest, either real or perceived? If there are two members of a household on a 5-member committee, so this is not a quorum because 2 is not more than half of 5. Thus, it's not a violation of the OPMA or a conflict of interest. I think that sort of got lost 2 weeks ago. 2 is not a quorum. Okay, so I'm also going to talk about ETAC since I was on it for a long time, and many challenges, roadblocks have been put in the way of ETAC survival and being able to be effective the last several years. In fact, the ETAC website has not been updated in many months or years, in fact, and the introduction on the website regarding required expertise is erroneously cut and pasted from the Climate Change Advisory Committee. I just noticed that today. It's a cut and paste directly from Climate Change Advisory Committee. So obviously those two don't have the same expertise requirements. The ordinance that created ETAC specifies expertise in wildlife management, fisheries management, geology, wetlands management, et cetera. Climate change and UAC requirements are very different from ETAC. Lots of times ETAC is considered as sort of equivalent in a way to UAC. But UAC required expertise is utility planning, construction, rate structures, or related focus areas, very different from the scientific requirements to be on ETAC. So those two are not equivalent, and the Climate Change Advisory Committee and ETAC should not have the exact same expertise requirements on the website. That needs to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Melanie Keenan.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Keenan. I'm a licensed geologist, hydrogeologist. Thank you for acknowledging the importance for appropriate allowances for people with disabilities. Previously, staff attempted to block my participation on the Environmental Technical Advisory Committee due to my disability, so this is a step in the right direction. However, I am disappointed. At the last meeting, the city council, city manager, city attorney were inappropriately denigrating myself as a volunteer for 6 years on ETAC by name, discriminating based on my marital and familial status without being able to defend myself from the misinformation, falsely stating that my husband and I, who were appointed by previous council based on our credentials and expertise, creates an appearance of conflict of interest. So it is a conflict of interest, and somehow we are unethical without basis, unreasonable. Falsely stating as chair, I insisted on interviewing my husband, which is a lie. Obviously, someone else on the committee would sit in for that interview. However, I'm not married to all committee members who are reapplying or recently applied. Kobe has been sidelining the committee for over 3 years. It has become obvious that the council members, Morawaki and Dietz, did not properly interview or reappoint members back in November 24 with a committee member present to help guide them on the science. They did not understand the requirements for application. You do not need to be an expert in modeling to be on the committee, nor do you have to attend all meetings, especially when the city has canceled most of the meetings for the last 2 years and failed to provide any work historically reviewed by ETAC. We are not elected officials. We are not paid like the council or staff. We are not a decision-making body like council. We only review and advise. Council member Joe Dietz is right to be concerned about his wife serving on an advisory committee per ethics rules because he would oversee her advice. We are not married to council members. The ethics rules do not apply to our circumstances, or previous councils would not have appointed us. This city has turned managing water resources responsibly and intelligently into a problem. Interesting how you have disabled EPTAC by not appointing members for years to block environmental review by qualified citizens for stormwater management, draft environmental impact statement, and groundwater management plan work, and the comp plan update. Be careful what you wish for, because having volunteer professional citizens review reporting defer to council and staff. Otherwise, citizens with expertise report problems directly to regulatory agents and other elected and appointed county state officials. As a licensed scientist, I have always operated with integrity, professionalism, as required by my Washington state licensing. It is questionable as to why this has become an issue after 3 years when Dr. Gander was appointed to help with the committee, except to continue to block review of the groundwater management plan by the appropriate citizen committee with expertise, because COBE has failed to hire a qualified hydrogeologist to manage vital water resources on a sole source aquifer island. The groundwater management plan should be celebrated as a step to properly manage and protect water resources for current and future residents. Work for citizen volunteers providing information based on peer-reviewed reporting and data should never be viewed as a problem. Don't shoot the messenger when making an important decision on water because the reporting is not convenient for some. You can't change 300,000 plus years of glacial geology on an island. Either way, I will continue to work on water resources as a citizen or an appointed volunteer. An apology would be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. So a few people came in after the list was taken away. Is there anybody who wanted to speak who didn't get a chance to sign in? Okay, go ahead, Malcolm Gander.
Hello, Council. Malcolm Gander, Rolling Bay hydrogeologist. So I reached out, I've been reaching out for months about the groundwater management plan schedule. And we are going to hire a peer reviewer, which I am really glad about. But we need to follow through. And Blair actually emailed me on June 13th. And I emailed him back, he emailed me again. And he said that he's going to work with Chris so we can have a public meeting after we receive the peer reviewers' comments, after the revised draft comes out, and after we get written responses, not only from the Groundwater Management Plan Subcommittee, but from the Technical Advisory Committee that has people from KPUD, Charlie Kratzer, Doug Wood with Department of Ecology, and so forth. You know, we want to get TAC comments and responses, subcommittee comments and responses, the peer reviewer comments, have all that out in the open, have a public meeting, consultant will be there, answer questions, we go forward, significant things can be incorporated in the draft, we can do it, and have all this stuff in the appendix of the plan, because this plan's going to be around for years. And we want it to be a document that we can refer to, where we have incidents of seawater intrusion, records of the biggest production wells on the island pumping out way more water than they did 20 years ago. It's all facts. Okay, and we have to tie that with the economics. We have economic limitations. We have political priorities. We have all that stuff. Let's have a document that's comprehensive. Let's follow through. Thanks again to Blair. Let's do this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we have one remote comment this evening, Steve Thiel.
Thank you. Can everybody hear and see me now? Great. My name is Steve Thiele. I am a resident of Eagledale, and I am commenting tonight about the Cooper Creek Fish Passage project and the companion non-motorized improvement project. First of all, at the top of my comments, I want to say that I understand that these projects were pursued by staff and the council with good intentions, but I'm very concerned about the safety issues of the Cooper Creek design and the total lack of meaningful public involvement and notice for both of the projects as proposed. I have sent several emails to council members and to the city manager expressing specific concerns at length, but the Cooper Creek project in particular is very concerning from a public safety access because it's going to limit all vehicle access to the south end to just a single route, Fletcher Bay. That's the busiest. The Eagle Harbor Drive is the busiest segment on the road segment on the island, and the Wyckoff project is about to start up again, putting scores of heavily loaded dump trucks now on the detour route if the project goes through as scheduled. The first time, as one of the earlier commenters said, and I think everybody on the south end learned about this in a meaningful way, was when the reader boards went up a couple of weeks around Greenlight Garage, which was months after the contract was actually signed. The packet of materials for tonight's meeting really just doesn't have much information in it, and the assessment of the traffic impacts and the problem intersections, I think, greatly understates the traffic problems this will create and the potential hazards. And there's no plan for contingency if this project doesn't finish on time and the road continues to be closed through the rest of this year, spring, into the next fish window. So this project is just too risky at this point in the current design. And I've strongly urged the council to pause the project. I understand that may cost money, but I think it's very important to get a better design and get better public involvement. Briefly, in the time I have left, I just want to talk about the non-motorized improvement project, which I understand is up for vote tonight. There's no meaningful information in there. We don't know how it's going to affect traffic. We don't know how long it's going to affect traffic. Just woefully inadequate information is available. I don't know how anybody in the public can make a meaningful decision on whether this is a good project or not with the information available. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was our last public commenter. With that, public comment is closed. And we will move on to our consent agenda. Councilmember Murwacki.
I would move to approve the consent agenda with the removal of 5D for discussion.
Second.
So, Councilmember Hitopoulos.
I wanted to pull an item.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I wanted to pull 8F. Oh, sorry, not 8F, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong side. 5J, sorry.
Okay. So 5D and 5J? Okay. Okay. Councilmember Murwacki?
I made the, add to the amendment, the removal of 5J for further discussion. So that would be the approval motion of the consent agenda with the removal of 5D and 5J for discussion.
Perfect.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, motion made by Councilmember Murwacki, seconded by Deputy Mayor Quitsland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Will. Now we do 5D. Okay. So now we're on to item 5D, which is authorize city manager to execute a construction contract in the amount of $740.
Yes, Mayor, for hear from the council member.
I pulled this because this is a road improvement project. The one thing that I noticed about it, it was the budget was over $1 million. It came in at less than, a little under $750,000. So there's well over $250,000 of savings. And I wanted to have this for discussion for the council as well as discussion with the city manager and public works director, because it seems to me that this would be a great opportunity with a surplus to not only do this road improvement, but to add shoulders if possible. If it's engineering possible, it looks like it's budgetary, because we're going to be building this new road and we have a lot about mobility issues and bicycles. Why not do it now? It'll be just a section, but it'd be one in a future section of other shoulder improvements. So I would like to have that discussion before us and really would like us to consider that, if possible, to put into this construction contract, to consider that, design it and build it.
Thanks. Councilmember Hatopoulos.
I think we're still talking about that issue. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, through the chair, and I invite the Public Works Director here. So yes, we did receive a favorable bid for this project. Something that I talked to the Public Works Director before. This was a bid that was submitted in unit prices. In other words, there is a bid on units. In other words, the amount of asphalt. So you could convert those units to other work to be done. I think that what the intention is, we haven't talked about this with the council, that if the council were to award this, then we would work with the contractor to look for additional work to pursue based upon the favorable unit prices that they have quoted us. I don't think that we have talked about, and I would invite the Public Works Director, any specific location to add that extra work. But we could take direction. I don't know in terms of what the right-of-way widths are. So the three locations is Baker Hill Road, Linwood Center to Blakely Heights Drive. Also, we did look at whether there's a conflict. We don't think there is. There, Sportsman Club, High School Road to New Brooklyn Road and Small Road, Lariat Loop. Whether there's the ability to extend additional distance or to add shoulders. Maybe Chris Wojcicki would have some opinion on that.
Thank you, City Manager. Chris Wojcicki, Public Works Director. Good evening, Council. Just a couple of points on Councilmember Milwaukee's comment. The first is that we haven't executed the project yet. So it's always good for us to have a little bit of extra in the project in case we need contingency, in case we run into issues with sub-base conditions or other things where we have to pay additional quantities to get the project done in accordance with our expectations. So it's good to always have a little bit of float in the project budget. As the city manager mentioned, the contract as written does allow us to expand the contract for other spot improvements if we have enough funds to be able to identify another priority location and be able to do some additional paving work. We can, if the contractor is amenable to that, we can amend the contract to have another portion of the work performed. With regards to shoulders, that's probably one of the more difficult things for us to do. There's probably only one location of these three that we would consider for shoulders. One is a Lariat Loop is a very small local access road that probably doesn't require shoulders. Sportsman Club has shoulders already, which will be repaved as a part of this project. So it's really comes down to Baker Hill. And we just don't know enough about the roadside conditions at this point to be able to determine if we could build shoulders in this location. There's drainage features, potentially trees and other things in the way. So while I think we can potentially look at expanding the scope of work for additional paving, building shoulders at this point is probably not a possibility. So, but thank you for the comment.
Okay.
Just follow up. I appreciate that. I think it's a missed opportunity though, because sometime we're going to have to, and we've talked about this in our non-motorized planning, to have that as a major route to get people out of their cars and up through Linwood Center. It just seems to me if there's a way to do this, and again, I did caveat it. I did say if it was feasible and within budget, but it would seem to me that if we're planning to do it in long term, we're going to do it sometime. And back to the issue about the head of the bay, that was discussed about the salmon area at the beginning of our discussions about that project, but that's bundling the projects, doing it all at one time, don't come back and redo it. So that's just the common sense thing I'm trying to consider of the future project here and the one we just finished on Madison.
Thanks, Councilmember. Can you do the motion?
Okay, sorry, got it. I'll get it. I move to authorize the city manager to execute a construction contract with Tushy and Sons Limited Liability Corporation in the amount of $740,800.50 for the 2025 annual road repair and maintenance program.
A second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Milwaukee, seconded by Councilmember Fantroy Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
So Mayor, again, we've heard the comment. I think staff's position is we want to get the contract awarded, get the contractor working, make sure that for the segments that we have, that we don't run into any unexpected conditions and don't have any cost overruns. And then as we look for opportunities to expand the work using the unit prices, we'll bring that back to the council for a discussion.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we will go on to 5J. Councilmember Hytopoulos.
Yeah. So I'm concerned about this item. I won't be voting for it, for someone else is going to have to make the motion. I don't understand why we're preliminarily approving the island-wide mobility plan before it goes to the planning commission. I'm not understanding the procedural reason for that. And I'm uncomfortable with the context of, again, a lot of people have felt concerned. I was one of them, that there has not been enough public input into how this plan has been developed, this version that's going to go into the comprehensive plan. And so the idea that we would do any sort of even preliminary approval right now before we allow the planning commission to look through it and take comment, et cetera, is concerning to me. The fact that it's on a consent agenda is concerning to me. I'm not saying we should have discussed it further. I think it should just be going to the planning commission. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, again, as I said the last time this was in front of us, I am concerned. I understand, I'm seeing the memo in the packet that there should be the ability for us to make changes later. Procedurally, sorry, I've said the word procedurally like 10 times now, but I don't understand how we could be making substantive changes when this comes back to us for approval later. And again, the example that I pointed to is I had thought we would be finally looking at punching through Hildebrand, and that would be I'm not a traffic engineer or planner, but that seems like a major traffic change that would be discussed throughout the process, for example. So I don't feel that I'm going to be comfortable having this come back, having gone through planning commission, say, oh, hey, I'm a council member, I want to do this. So I don't feel like there's been enough process here for me to vote for this. So I won't be voting for it, and I'd ask somebody else to make the motion.
Thanks, Councilmember Hytopoulos. Deputy Mayor Quitsland.
I recall a public meeting in which we discussed the island-wide mobility plan and this conflation of existing plans. I thought it was very skillfully done. I said so at the time. We did discuss it in council meetings. I believe that what is going forward right now through staff intended to, I think, for presentation to the Planning Commission is work on the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. And having the other plan in place, unless there are obvious flaws in what has been part of the public record for some time now, I don't know why we should hold up the process of development of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. That will involve a lot of public exposure and discussion within the Planning Commission, and council can be engaged with that process as well. So I'm in favor. I will be voting for this motion. I don't have the motion in front of me to make the motion. Here it is. I move to grant preliminary approval to the island-wide mobility plan and to forward the same to the Planning Commission for consideration as an amendment to the transportation element of the comprehensive plan.
I'll second. Okay, motion made by Deputy Mayor Quitsland, seconded by Councilmember Schneider, and one. Yep.
So as the motion says, it is actually, it's not forwarding, it's not approving this, thank God, and then saying, go work on the transportation element. It is moving this product to them for consideration. At least that's how I read that motion. But I just want to correct for the record, and I'm not saying at all that Councilmember Quitsland was being deceitful or something. I'm saying I think it could have sounded as though we worked on this or we had a workshop on it. We considered it. We received it. We received a final product. We had a small time and agenda. None of us would have been in the position of really inappropriate for us to start proposing amendments to it. So I want to be clear that for the public record that we have not worked on this plan. We also, one more thing is that I think I heard Councilmember Quitsland say that when it's at the Planning Commission that we can somehow participate in that process. We cannot, we should not, we as council members should not be participating through comment or anything at the planning commission, to be clear. We should be very separate on that front. So just want to make those corrections to the record.
Thanks, Councilmember. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I got confused there. I was like, okay, thanks, Councilmember Hitophilus. Okay, next we are on to council announcements. Do we have any announcements today? Oh, Councilmember Dietz.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a few things, folks. Let's see. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting of the Puget Sound Clean Air Advisory Council, which I represent not just Bainbridge, but Kitsap County. We will be reviewing the comprehensive climate action plan of the agency. This is the clean air agency for the Puget Sound region, just so you know. Be discussing some environmental justice approaches and a presentation on national ambient air quality. Okay, so there's that. That's tomorrow. Then on Thursday, I think probably Mayor Matthews will join me for the intergovernmental STEP group meeting on Thursday. That's here at City Hall. STEP stands for Shelter, Transitional, Emergency, and Permanent Supportive Housing. So it's sort of a homelessness and recovery housing group. It's an ad hoc committee, ad hoc meeting. We actually haven't formally approved it. It's just a number of jurisdictions, City of Bainbridge Island, City of Poulsbo, Kitsap County, and a number of nonprofits that are involved in the homelessness issue. So we'll be meeting here on Thursday. It's a good group, and we'll be discussing, among the discussions at Thursday's meeting, is finding a safe place for people to sleep in their vehicles in North Kitsap. So that's where we're at, folks, is helping people who are living in their cars to safely sleep. So this is the committee in Kitsap County, North Kitsap, that deals with these issues. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Milwaukee.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. And segue to that, you and let's see, almost all of us were at the Association of Washington Cities Conference. And kudos to what was the group called? But our three members here, Councilmember Hitophilus, the Waselli group. This was a project, and I hope some of you will speak out to that. I think it's a really impressive project, and we're really proud that our mayor was on the keynote talking about that program, and he did a really fine job, and we all had a blast after hours as well. Last week, I had the Kitsap Transit Board of Directors meeting, and we officially gave kudos. There's an national competition of bus drivers, or the operators, they call them, the coach operators, and they're from transit districts throughout the entire country, everywhere, metropolitan, from New York and LA and everywhere. And at the 35-foot class, it was not only the first woman, but it was also our own driver. She was the best in the nation. She was the first woman and the first person to do that. And so we gave her really wonderful kudos. And she has to do that on her own time. She has to travel to Olympia to their practice facility on her own time and borrow their buses, and she has to practice. She already drives 6 days a week, and she does that on her other days off. So this is real commitment. And I asked her, why do you like to do this? She goes, because we always lose the inner city transit, so I want to practice on their turf. I thought that was pretty cool. And we had a 9/11. Kitsap 9/11 is used to be Kitsap CENTCOM. And we had a long discussion about raising the fees from all the organizations. Today, we had a quick 1-hour meeting and voted those in to our public. That was factored into our budget, so it's not an increase in cost, and something that our police chief also advocated for. So to do that. And then we also participated together as a group, most of us, at the 4th of July. And I want to thank the city staff for putting together a really cool, fun float. I think the theme was cool, and I also appreciated that the mayor I think she yelled out "Happy 4th" about 100 million times. So I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Thanks. Okay, I guess, Deputy Mayor.
Two meetings that I want to mention, two important meetings. The first of those on June 26th, the meeting of the Planning Commission. I was not present, but I just want to call attention to a meeting. Clearly, the Planning Commission and its work on the sub-area plan for Winslow is at a juncture. They did important work, and they proceeded also in part of the meeting to begin reviewing goals and policy statements that will be part of the Winslow sub-area plan. I reviewed the video of that meeting in order to pick up the two motions that were made, and you'll see at the very end of the agenda, communications that we'll place on a future agenda discussion of those requests from the Planning Commission to the City Council. Also related to our work on planning for Winslow and completion of our comprehensive plan, I attended on July 3rd the Growth Management Policy Board meeting of the Puget Sound Regional Council. Most of the time in these meetings is spent in the process of certifying plans finalized by municipalities around the four parts of the region. And Bainbridge Island was at the top of a list, just an alphabetical list of 11 municipalities that have not yet completed the comprehensive plan that is now significantly overdue, but we are working, I think, at the all deliberate speed to meet our obligations there. One of the municipalities that was certified was the city of Gig Harbor, and it was mentioned that the city of Gig Harbor has an obligation to, given its shoreline situation, has an obligation to take note of the 500-year model for sea level rise and its effect on the city. That's something that we'll have to figure in our thinking as well. So not only 500 years, but no, it's, well, that's all I need to say, I think, about that. It's
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Okay, so last week I had the Kitsap Public Health District. Our meeting was probably the first live resignation I've ever heard. Our health officer, Dr. Gib Morrow, resigned during his administrator announcements. It will be sad to see him go. And he really got, I think, the community and Kitsap County as a whole through, or a lot of his initiatives got us through COVID. So he will be missed, and that was definitely a first. I flagged the Planning Commission meeting. If you get a chance to listen to it, it's online. I would really listen to that meeting. It's probably, to me, it was everything. They're at a point where they need our input. So listen to it just to get an idea of what they're asking for. That I think will come up in communication, some of it, but there's a lot of nuance to it that we should probably hear. And then Councilmember Dietz mentioned our STEP meeting here on Thursday. I'm excited for that one. I put that together with Lehigh and our group. And so I'm excited to see what comes out of that. AWC was great. And it was really cool to be away with everyone. And I learned a lot in sessions, but I'm going to do a Councilmember Dietz and do a little show and tell here. So I was a C-rate or D-level model in New York City. And I used to be in a few magazines like Glamour and YM and those. But this is the coolest magazine I've ever been in. And it is the Association of Washington Cities. They have a magazine for all 281 cities called City Vision. And they did a profile on us and pickleball, of all things. So it was my moment of fame. And 4th of July was amazing. It was great to see the community out. One thing was there was a AI image that was on Facebook generated with flamingos and signs. That was AI. That was not the actual float in the parade. We've gotten an email about that. And so I know if we get it from one person, then there must be others who are thinking that was the actual parade. It's not Winslow, it's AI. You can make things look however you want. So That's all I have. Oh, Councilmember Schneider.
Sorry, I got my light up a little late. So this Thursday is going to be an extended meeting of the Puget Sound Regional Council Transportation Policy Board, and they're encouraging everyone to go in person. So I'm really grateful that we'll have that. I really enjoy them when they're encouraging us in person, because we actually get to do some collaboration. Anyway, we've been working on the regional transportation plan, sort of early versions of the planning for it. And this particular meeting, we will be discussing the kind of scary financial strategy for this next regional transportation plan, the RTP, looking at recommended scenarios to advance into modeling and analysis. So I really hope that this council gets a chance to see some of those before things get finalized. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schneider. Okay,
One hand, please.
Councilmember Moraki.
And you did look great in that picture. One mentioned the 4th of July, 3rd of July. These are some incredible community events, and not that it needs any real plug, but the Rotary auction is this Saturday, the world's largest, or at least the nation's largest garage sale. And I'm sure some people in the audience are probably volunteering. I've already put in 40 hours the last 3 days and plan to do more. Please come out. The Rotary does a lot of good services for our community. Plus, we're recycling, reusing. It's just really a wonderful event.
Okay. All righty. Seeing no more lights, we'll go on to city manager's report.
I have no report at this time.
Okay. Then we are on to regular business. First item is 8A, authorize the city manager to execute a construction contract.
Yes, Mayor. The proposition before you actually is the authorization of a construction contract in the amount of $2,558,798.39 with Johansson Construction Company for the Eagle Harbor Drive non-motorized improvements. However, we are going to give you a presentation by the Public Works Director, and we are also going to discuss the Cooper Creek Fish Passage project. The projects work in tandem, and we like to address some of the public comments. But again, the proposition for the council is the award of the construction contract. I'd like to ask Mr. Worsvicki to come on up and then provide the presentation. And then we can come back and talk about some of the other aspects with that. But again, maybe this is a mistake, but we want to also explain the Cooper Creek project, the differences between the two projects, the one's awarded, one's not, one's the cause for the long detour, the other is not. And I will say again, this Eagle Harbor Drive is not the reason for the detour. It's the Cooper Creek. We'll talk a little bit about the engineering, though, of the Cooper Creek project and why the detour is required.
Thank you, City Manager. Chris Worsbicki, Public Works Director. City Manager always does a great job of stealing the first 5 minutes of the things I'm going to say in my presentation, but I will repeat them anyway. Good evening, Council. As the City Manager mentioned, we're going to give you an overview of two concurrent construction projects that only one of you're only going to make a decision on one of those tonight. I want to highlight the fact that these two projects were originally intended to be built together under a single contract. That's the way we've been discussing it for probably the past 2 years or so. But we decided to split them up because if we had federal funding in the Fish Passage project, the permitting process associated with the federal funding would have really pushed the timeline for the project even farther out, and we would not be able to build them and take advantage of the closures and the advantages of building both of these at the same time. And it would have taken us several more years and probably cost us a bunch more money as well. So we decided to split the projects up. We have federal money in the project you're going to consider approving tonight, and we have local funds in the Cooper Creek Fish Passage project. As City Manager mentioned, we'll also look at the Cooper Creek road closure plans as well. So just a reminder, your motion tonight is to authorize a contract with Johansson Construction in the amount of $2.558 million for the Eagle Harbor and Wyatt non-motorized improvements project. We'll talk about the timeline again for this project in just a minute. Here is the map showing the two different project areas. The red is the non-motorized improvement project. It begins at Wyatt and Ashbury Court and extends west around the head of the bay and ends just up the hill from the Eagle Harbor intersection on Buckland Hill Road. And there's also a small improvement at the very south end there on Eagle Harbor Drive, expanding the shoulder where we built improvements a number of years ago to improve safety there. The yellow area is the Fish Passage project, which you can see right where Cooper Creek enters Eagle Harbor at the head of the bay. So beginning with the Eagle Harbor non-motorized project, which is the focus of tonight's decision, this is going to be a great project. We've talked a lot about it. It is going to incorporate a lot of similar elements that we had success with on the Madison bundled project, raised bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, traffic calming islands, and safer crossing facilities. I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody standing where that blue car is there across from Finch Avenue with a person trying to figure out how to cross the road and get across there. It's just not a safe location for bikes and peds, and the crosswalks and the other facilities here are really going to help aid non-motorized transportation through this corridor, which is one of the most highly used non-motorized corridors on the island, which is why it was selected. The discussions on this project go way back beyond 24. We've been talking about it for about 2 years, but we did begin the recent decisions back in November when you authorized us to advertise for this project. We awarded we tried to award a contract on June 10th. I'm trying to remember what happened here. And we had a bid irregularity. We were all concerned that if we rebid this project, we weren't going to get another good bid. Surprise, we got an even better bid, which is, I would not expect that to happen again. So let's not repeat that. But we did re-advertise, and we have an award for you to consider tonight. The construction for this project is to begin in August and potentially wrap up in November, although that will be weather permitting. We'll give more updates on the schedule after the contract has been awarded. The construction contract in total, including the water improvements that we talked about a number of weeks ago, came out to $2.56 million, which is about $100,000 less than the bid that we had previously, which is a great thing. We have about $3.5 million in project budget right now, including a federal grant. As I mentioned, there's actually 2 federal grants that are associated with this project that sum up to almost $1 million. And we have a state grant from the Transportation Improvement Board to support this work as well. Now, moving on to the project that you approved a number of months ago, the Cooper Creek Fish Passage project. This project is related but different, and it will be performed at the same time but by a different contractor. There are 2 main outcomes for this work. The first is on the surface. As you can tell, anybody who's walked in this corridor knows it is a really dangerous place to walk. It doesn't feel comfortable on a bike or as a pedestrian. In the future, in the condition you can see there, we'll have widened and protected shoulders on one side and widened and buffered shoulders on the other that will allow for much better pedestrian and bicycle traffic in this zone. The other thing that's happening is below the ground. On the left-hand side, you can see the 30-inch concrete culvert there. That really is a fish barrier. There are documented fish, including steelhead, trout, and juvenile salmon in this location. There are tidal wetlands upland of Eagle Harbor where these salmon and other species are able to spawn if they can get through this passage. So as you can see on the right-hand side, while it's a little bit of a cryptic diagram, generally what we're showing there is that we are expanding the fish passage with a box culvert, allowing for a much wider, more natural stream bed to allow fish to pass through that area and up into the tidal wetlands. The timeline for this project also goes back several years, but just your recent decisions began in January, where you authorized us to advertise for the construction of this project. We awarded that contract in early April, and we released a press release to the community on the 25th of June about the closure, and we'll talk a little bit more about the reasons for the closure in just a minute. That construction contract came in at $2.3 million. We have about $2.7 in the budget. And that budget includes $720,000 grant that came from the state's Climate Commitment Act. So there's important money in this project that we were. It's great that we were able to receive and spend in this way. So part of the reason we're doing these projects together is because they were originally envisioned together. They take place in the same portion of the corridor. And we're trying to, although it may not seem that way, we're trying to minimize overall impacts to the community in the long term by bundling different types of improvements in the same corridor together and having one construction season as opposed to 2 or 3 construction seasons. So we're bundling transportation improvements, water system improvements, and these fish passage improvements into these 2 projects. By doing that, we have overall less traffic control and lower project management costs. We are building this work mostly because it needs to be done during what is called the fish window, when we can build within the active waterway. That fish window opening begins in July and ends in October, so we have to build the fish passage within that time frame. It also happens to be a period of time when school is out and there's less traffic on the roads, and lesser disruption to school district transportation. And it increases work zone safety if we're able to actually have a closure as well, as opposed to flagging and having a project done under traffic. A little bit about the sequencing of the fish passage culvert. When we originally designed this project, we were not sure whether how long this closure was really going to need to be. It wasn't until we brought Redside, the contractor, in, brought them to the table to discuss the means and methods for the project, which is something the city doesn't have a lot of control over in construction projects, that we were able to determine that they really needed the full roadway width in order to build this thing within this short time frame. You can see the roadway conditions above. It's basically an embankment with a culvert underneath. The contractor has to build 2 wing walls on each side of this box culvert, and they need the entire roadway width to do that, because they'll be placing the equipment essentially in the center of these 2 wing walls, and building a cofferdam on each side to prevent the water from entering the construction site while they're building the facility. So we're actually going to be bypassing the stream out into the Eagle Harbor via a pipe, a separate pipe. Once the culvert is installed, it'll be done in two phases. The lower one will be built first, and then they'll be built with a cap on top, and then the roadway lid will be built on top of that. Another reason for the closure is that we have, as you can see on this bottom diagram, about 12 feet worth of geosynthetic wall that has tiebacks that basically extend almost all the way into the existing portion of the roadway, which really doesn't enable us enough space to be able to have a section of the road open. So these are all leading to the reason for this 3-month closure. This is a snapshot from the communications that we put out to the community a couple of weeks ago, just highlighting the primary detour routes around the site, which are Finch Road, High School Road, and Fletcher Bay Road. There are some secondary detours that folks may choose to use, including Weaver and Old Mill, or even Vincent Road. They will not be signed detours, but people familiar with the roadway network may choose to use them to get around the project area. Once we learned that there was going to be an extended closure, one of the first things we did was determine that we could provide a pedestrian and bicycle access through this area. So anybody who uses this corridor to bike to and from the ferry or to and from town will be able to use a pedestrian bridge to access across here and not have to use the detour. They will have to dismount their bike in order to be able to use the bridge, but the property owner granted us an easement adjacent to the area, and so that bridge will be going up in the next couple of days. Just another quick snapshot of the secondary, primary and secondary detour routes. As I mentioned, Finch Road, High School, and Fletcher will be the signed official detour. We will be closely monitoring 2 key intersections, the Blakely and Buckland intersection there, where the red circle is, right about in the center of the map, and then also the Fletcher High School intersection. And after we perform some observations after the closure, it's possible that we may need some mitigation in one or both of those locations, and we'll make some determinations after we see what the conditions are. So again, next steps is a motion to authorize the contract for Eagle Harbor non-motorized improvements. July 16th, which is next Wednesday, we'll begin the road closure for Cooper Creek. I discussed with the city manager today, bringing a report back to the council on July 22nd, so that we could tell you our observations in terms of what the traffic looks like on the detour route, and determine if there's any mitigation that we need to potentially put in place. And then once we get the contractor up and running for the non-motorized improvements, we will develop a schedule and communicate that out to both the council and the community at that time. So really looking forward to getting these projects that have been on the books for a number of years completed for the community. And I think there will be disruptions, but I think in the end of the day, we will be very satisfied with the results of this in 6 months from now. So thank you again for your consideration, and I look forward to your discussion.
Thank you, Director Worsbicky. Councilmember Dietz, and then I did not see the order of lights down there.
I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, but I know there'll be discussion, and including myself. I move to authorize the city manager to execute a construction contract with Johansson Construction Company LLC in the amount of $2,558,798.39 for the Eagle Harbor Drive Safety Improvement and Wyatt Way Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project.
Second.
Okay, and I'll speak to this first here. First off, it was very difficult when we had to reject that bid a few meetings ago. I'll just say it was very painful. So I'm very pleased. I think congratulations to staff to being able to quickly turn around such an important project so quickly to come back that now we can make a motion, hopefully approve this. So congratulations on that. And maybe speaking to the disruption that's going to occur for the south end. Now, I live on the north end, so probably it's not fair for me to speak on this because I'm not impacted, but no one likes these projects, the impact when it happens. I mean, we did experience quite a bit of disruption with Madison Avenue, and but look what we have now. And so it's sort of like your house remodel, if you will. You know, there's a lot of disruption. It's very inconvenient, and then you have a nice new part of your home. Well, in this case, we're going to have a nice, very nice new part of Eagle Harbor Drive. This is safe for drivers, car drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, and fish. So it's going to be a win-win-win eventually. It's just unfortunate. We just have to bear with kind of some pain. And I'm sorry, again, as a North Ender, you could say, well, nice of you to say that, Joe, but just bear with it. I'm sorry, just have some patience, but it will be a much better roadway once it's done. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moriwaki.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews. Thank you, Councilmember Dietz, for your comments. And I'm amplifying in a different way. If you looked at the presentation from the Public Works Director, you'll notice it is just a tiny, tiny, narrow piece of land that is being worked on here. Squeezing in that pedestrian bridge took another easement outside of the right-of-way of the city. So there's simply no way that we can do this. Unlike Madison, which we could work in lanes and there's enough right-of-way where you can keep one lane open. This project, you simply can't do that. There's just no way you can have an exterior route to get around that area. It just is wide enough. Everyone drives it all the time. And I'm glad he brought up the issue because we've been talking about it for a couple of years, both these projects, but most of the discussion was about the bike lanes and not really about this waterway, of which I remember saying many, many times, it's also this other project. And you can go back and look at the recordings and records. So we also have this project coming up as well. And finally, thirdly, I like the presentation of the Public Works Director. He calls it a culvert, but I would like to think of it more like a little bridge. You have this 30-foot pipe, and now you have this 15-foot wide elevated area that water is going to flow under like a little bridge. It's kind of like what's being done up and down 3 and 5 right now through the mitigation required by the court from the tribes to open up streams that are salmon bearing and other things and other environmental reasons. So that's also an important part. We're doing a part to make sure that our island is viable and environmentally rich. And this is a viable stream. We're very lucky that there are salmonoids and other species that can use it. So this will really enhance the quality of life for them, but also on our island as well. And also make it a much safer route for pedestrians and bikes to use that route. Thank you.
Councilmember Moriwaki, I couldn't see who was first, Councilmember Hytopoulos or Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to share that I really feel for the folks that are going to be impacted by this. And I guess what I want to say a little bit differently is that not all of those impacted are going to be impacted equally. It's going to affect some way more than others. And so, just to think back even before the Madison Avenue improvements back to the roundabout improvements, it actually created really scary conditions for our bicyclers coming down who would normally be in the bike lanes coming down 305. And we have some of those bicyclers here on city staff. So anyway, there's always the people who feel it harder than others. And I just want to say thank you to those folks for giving the city, you know, this major improvement. And then I just had a quick question because I had heard that the bicyclers and peds were going to be able to get through, but I didn't realize there was going to be this separate bridge. And my question is this a temporary construction type of bridge?
Through the chair, it's my understanding it's temporary. There is a separate easement that was required just for the construction period, to provide pedestrian and cyclist access.
Hey, thanks, Councilmember Hydopoulos.
Well, I have had a complete turnabout during this meeting. And unfortunately, I want to appreciate very much the citizen who spoke online earlier. I won't use names because I don't want to call people out. But we received a really compelling email from him earlier that I had realized I hadn't looked at. Oh, I recognize that name. I'm going to read his email. And this is somebody who, as he said, worked for 35 years as the lead attorney for the Department of Ecology's Shoreline Environment Assistance Program and worked on multiple habitat restoration projects. That's the level of, to me, that's some credibility that's important to me. More importantly, perhaps, that backs up my gut reaction to the series of emails that he has sent us on the safety condition that we have here in closing this road. And I am really worried, and I'm not an expert on this, but let me start by saying I am a South Ward resident. When I heard about this, and somebody who travels back and forth a lot to my office in Winslow and et cetera, I was going to be inconvenienced. I was upset. I was upset by the short notice, but I thought this project has to happen. We're going to do it. So this is all new to me to realize some of these issues that I hadn't thought about, that as a layperson are very compelling to me, including the fact that this is an island and we have two routes out of the South Ward, the south end of the island. We are going to completely eliminate one of them. We will have one route. Now, I don't know, somebody here probably knows the population off the top of their head. I think that somebody referenced 9,000 trips per day around Eagle Harbor. And we are an island that has concerns about wildfires and earthquakes and a lot of other things. And so there may be answers to this, and we may be able to be provided the adequate information for me to feel safe about this. But this feels like something that really did require some sort of really significant emergency planning with experts where we understood it and we had a fair amount of notice and we could discuss it and we could intelligently weigh in on it. So I am so sorry to feel this way about a project that we have been talking about for a long time. Let's be clear, but we have not been talking about a road closure for a long time. We learned at the same time, the entire community learned that this was happening. And I think it really has been. I don't know whether the 2 weeks have been thrown around is correct, but it's pretty short. And so I don't know what level of planning has been done, what expertise has been brought to bear. The other thing that concerned me that was pointed out in those emails is that, and maybe this is answered easily, but it's a concern to me, since this is a fish window, if we've torn this road up and we are not done and the fish window closes, could that mean a year to the next fish window that we can't use this road? This is not about inconvenience. This is about safety in a really big way. And some people, I don't even know if the city attorney knows, but people who don't live here may not know, there is not another way out. I think maybe there's some back way somewhere with little tiny roads around Vincent Road and over to Fletcher Bay, maybe not a route. This is an island. I can't vote for this. And I feel so bad because I don't, it's a horrible thing to have to vote this plan. Now I'm not going to change the council, so it won't affect anything. But I do think that leadership requires in situations like this, that if we have alarm, we have to go with that alarm. I just want to see if there's anything else in notes I took that just kind of made my hair stand on end about that. And so I don't know for sure. There's absolutely no way this could be done without some sort of engineering design to get us an alternative through there. I don't know that. I've been asking anybody to tell me tonight because I don't think I'd feel comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and then Councilmember Francois Johnson.
I want to speak to the possibilities for some positive or mitigating adaptations. This is a long emergency of a sort. It imposes, as Councilmember Schneider said, it imposes on some people much more heavily than on others. I'm going to be inconvenienced, but not so much as the people who will rely on Old Mill Road and the people who live on Old Mill Road. That's not a road that's equipped for high volume traffic. And I am worried there. And I'm worried about medical emergencies that we'll have to be alert. We'll have to be maybe put some plans in place, some staff time in place to anticipate and be ready to respond to things that are unpredictable now. We're going to find out along the way how much traffic is reduced by the hardships. I'm going to make my own adaptations as best I can to do what I should have done a long time ago, limit the number of times that I go back and forth between home on Crystal Springs and things in Winslow. I'm not an efficient shopper, and I'm going to have to straighten that out and reduce the number of times that I'm on that road. But I'm equipped better than some other people maybe to take the time that I need for a longer trip. I'm not going to be hurt that much. But neighbors can help neighbors, I think, by sometimes carpooling, sometimes doing favors for each other when one person is shopping and another person just has a list. Things like that. This community could, with a little imagination and attention to detail, could lessen the stress, lessen the risks that we all need to be concerned about. I think we'll have some traffic management issues, and the people have to be ready to meet the needs that develop, and people have to try to avoid the peak times for optional travel, that sort of a thing. Let's just be smart about it, because this is happening, and we have to be try to lessen the stress rather than just get more and more upset about it. I do think we've got to be caring for each other and ready to help when there is an emergency that is created by this inconvenience.
Councilmember Fantra Johnson.
I just wanted to say, yes, it was really, it was bad that we had to reject the first offer and have to go through this a second time. I feel really bad for the company that didn't get it. But as far as the inconvenience, I think we've all been inconvenienced in one way or another on this island due to roads. I'm just thinking about the roundabout in the back of my house, of course, being, and thinking about how it is now. I haven't seen an accident since it's been there. So, the idea that it's safer really comes through. And I know that we're on an island. We've been on an island since we've been here. It's not news, but I think we also have a great emergency management group of volunteers that will certainly come through in case of any disaster. Now, that doesn't, make the people who are going to be impacted feel, totally better. But I mean, it is something to think about. If there was some sort of disaster, we have the best emergency management group on Kitsap. So there's that. And, everybody's going to be inconvenienced, but it won't be forever, and it will be much safer. And I think when we start detouring around, we'll start looking at how much slower we can go. Because right now, that road is dangerous. It is too dangerous to walk on. It's too dangerous to bike on. And it's dangerous when you're coming around that curve. I mean, I don't even like to go that way. And I feel like what we're doing is giving pedestrians a chance to be able to walk on that road. The people who live there, they may have a little sidewalk. Maybe they can get across the street now because we're putting in areas for them to do that. We have to think about how it's going to impact the majority of the people on this island and not just one or two people who, there's always people who are able to come out and speak and talk about how they feel. But I just wonder about the people who don't come out, and how they feel. We're not sitting up here just making decisions for the heck of it. We're trying to do it in the best way possible. We're trying to look at all of the areas, and we're trying to do it for the most amount of people possible. So, I'm just hoping that everybody not thinking that we're doing it just to inconvenience you, because that's not what we're doing.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hyde-Topoulos, do you have
I just want to make a follow-up comment. I'm really sorry that we keep continuing to talk about inconvenience when there's such significant safety issues. Again, I'm going to be severely inconvenienced, and I had every intention of coming in here and voting for this. I guess putting that aside, I wanted to touch just real quickly before we move on to the vote. I was talking so much about, really, my hair is 100% on fire about the safety issues. And I guess I'd also point out that I'm sure if you asked our emergency management people, they would tell you that we're already screwed on getting off the island in a fire. So going down to one road is a whole nother world, right? We already have a problem. Putting aside the safety issues, I have real public process concerns as well. I have concerns for how much process council had the more I think about this. So I just want to put out there that I want to know, in the long run, I want to know how long we knew there was going to be a full closure. I want to know who we consulted, what experts we consulted. I want to know what the opinion of the fire chief was. I want to be certain that there was no way to engineer around this. This is given not just the huge inconvenience, which is enough to put a big black eye on us. The safety issues merited more time and more attention, and for us to be made to feel safe that we were making an informed public safety choice.
Thanks, Councilmember. Okay, before we vote, let's see. So I had been going back and forth with responding to emails on this week, and one of them was the gentleman who called before, and one was gentleman in the audience today. And both of them have really compelling points. I get this is going to happen, so I don't think what I have to say really matters here. But my issue with this more, I think I'm leaning with Councilmember Hyde-Topoulos now, and I hate to do it. It's schedule and process. We knew, I feel like I thought about it. I live there. City manager is going to be inconvenienced too. And it was sort of like this is annoying, and we're going to have to go around, but I wasn't thinking about the safety issues. I wasn't thinking about fire trucks. I wasn't thinking about police. I was just thinking about me and my inconvenience. And thinking maybe I'll go get an e-bike. I have an e-bike, but maybe get one that I actually like and start riding. So it was like, okay. But then I started thinking about my 80-year-old parents who live up the street. They don't even know the other way to go. They're so set in their ways, just all of those things. And I feel like we should have had a conversation about the other things, like about the safety, maybe have Ann come and say, this is what our plan is, and have Jared from fire come say, this is how we're going to get around, and tell the public that. And then I would have felt much better, unfortunately. So, but I know how it's going to go. So call the vote. All those sorry, Councilmember Milwaukee.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews, and Councilmember Hyde-Topoulos. Your thoughts are very solid, very well thought through. And I agree with you, and I wish we did have more notice of how long to, but there was a discussion it would be closed for a while just because it's so narrow. There is think about how you're driving down there past Bethany Lutheran, that road. You've got a cliff on one side or downhill, and you've got a berm. There's just no physical space to put in an additional road, and you couldn't put a road through there. I'm just talking about the construction logistics, because they need to put in dams to stop the water so you can actually build the viaduct. It's not magic. It has to be done in a safe way, in a solid way that's environmentally sound, as well as going to be a structure that will last for decades to come. And so that's what it's being done. And it's awful. It's awful, but we don't do it now when? You know, we're going to have to do it sometime because it is something, it is a critical stream that is necessary, as well as we're going to make it a wider spot for safer pedestrian access and bicycle access and other non-motorized ways. It is one of the most dangerous corners on our island, and it will be difficult at times for people to get through, but it's a really dangerous thing right now as it is. And it's not the safest place on the island to drive, walk, or ride. It's one of the high risk areas. And so that I'm hearing everyone's voice, but the physical space, there is no other alternative, as well as the construction methods, to have any other route possible as through that area. And so that's a reality of the construction. It cannot be that the project as presented can't be done in any other way than to have it not available for traffic. Unlike Madison, where we had some right of way, you could drive around it. You can't do that here. There is no additional place for any additional road.
Okay, last two comments real quick, and then we'll, because we've
Yeah,
been going on
just-
this for, Councilor Hitopoulos, you have something really quick, or?
I think that Joe was next.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I do want to add, I take the comments from my, I guess, South End colleagues about safety and, emergency access. So my suggestion is Deputy Mayor and Mayor and City Manager, you guys plan agendas. Why don't you put in a study session, a discussion of safety measures in place for this construction project? Let's do that. And we move forward. So acknowledge the risks that are at play. But for us to stop this, I think would be a gross mistake. I'm sorry. But let's acknowledge the risks that have been brought up, indeed. And I'm going to look to my leadership here to bring this up for let's say a study session discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
My last comment would be, first of all, we actually don't, I'm not saying we wouldn't delay and, it and figure it out, but at the end of the day, we actually do not have to do the fish project. And I'm saying that as someone who since I first got on council and everything, I've been always accused of being too much for the environment and too much supportive of these sorts of things. I have always supported these sort of projects. But at the end of the day, if we really determined that we had a human safety issue that we could not engineer around, which I'm sorry, I don't have enough information to be sure there was no way to install the passage and preserve traffic. We don't know that for sure. But if that really were the case, if we knew that human safety was at serious risk, we might not do the project. So let's stop acting like this is something that we have to do. And then as far as the non-motorized safety improvements, I don't think anybody has told us that we couldn't do that project without going lane to lane. It is the unique nature of the way this passage is being constructed. So I just think we should all be real clear. That's what we're saying. We're not concerned about the safety issues because that's too bad because this has to happen. It actually doesn't. And again, leadership is being able to step back from something. Remember that it's not plowing forward no matter what. So if you all feel like you've heard it and it doesn't really ring true as a real safety issue, then good for you to continue to vote for it. But don't vote for this because the ball's been rolling and we can't stop the ball. It's our job to stop the ball or pause the ball and ask questions as well.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay. Now that motion passes. Now we are on to the next item, which is introduce Dave Ulen open water marina housing policy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What we want to present to you is we are coming back after a previous direction provided to us in the study session of May 10th regarding the open water marina. At that time, we told you that the state had raised rental rates, and we had brought to you a proposal to try to mitigate the rental rates for the lower income liveaboards that live within the marina. We have a proposal for you at this time. But what I'd like to do before we bring the proposal forward is address one of the concepts that was presented to us. And that is, could this open water marina be a part of our official affordable housing inventory? And something that we wanted to take a look at. We had presumed that because this is not a typical affordable housing project where there's a landlord-tenant relationship where we own the rental unit and we can establish that and control the quality of the rental unit, that it would be difficult to have that be an official affordable housing piece. As you know, the tenants bring their boats with them, and that's how the rental rates are established. But that's the city attorney to do some research. And before we make the presentation, I'd like the city attorney to give you what his conclusions are about that.
Yes, thank you, City Manager. The city's comprehensive plan, in the housing element of the comprehensive plan, specifically speaks to using liveaboards as housing stock and as a means of fulfilling the city's affordable housing goals. On the other hand, the city's zoning code specifically defines a dwelling unit, which we would really be looking at for affordable housing as dwelling units, defines a dwelling unit as part of a building that contains sleeping quarters, that contains cooking facilities, and that contains sanitation facilities, including specifically a shower or a tub. So it doesn't qualify as a dwelling unit under the city's zoning code, although under the city's comprehensive plan, it does indicate that liveaboards are an important part of, or preserving them is an important goal for the city in terms of affordable housing. I reached out to the Department of Commerce to find out what their perspective on this issue was. They did say that Bainbridge Island is the only jurisdiction that they know of that is considering liveaboards as a potentially affordable housing units. They also indicated that they had concerns about that usually housing units do include sanitation type of facilities, toilets, showers, and so forth, and that most boats probably did not meet that requirement. But there is nothing in the state laws or in the state regulations relating to the Growth Management Act that would prohibit you from considering affordable or considering liveaboards as affordable units. Again, I don't know what Commerce's attitude will be. I don't know if you do designate those as affordable units, whether those would pass muster with the PSRC in certifying your comprehensive plan, with the Growth Management Hearings Board, and with Department of Commerce, but there is nothing that says you can't do it. So, and it would be consistent with your comprehensive plan.
So I'm going to invite Management Analyst Laura Shear up to make the presentation. The proposal to you, you will see, does emphasize affordability and does give a priority to affordability. And there may be some further discussion for the council, or you may want to provide further direction to staff.
City Manager and Mayor, if I may, I just want to make two additional points that I had forgot. First, the affordable housing units that you're talking about have to be truly designated as affordable units. And my understanding is that the current policy is to allow those units to be used by people who are not low income. And the proposed policy is to allow that if not enough low income people can be found in order to fulfill that. That's the proposed policy that is before you. The current policy allows anybody on a first come, first served basis to use the unit. So that's a concern as well. So I think that's it.
Thank you, City Manager, City Attorney. Good evening, Council. My name is Laura Shear, a Management Analyst for the city, here to discuss the Dave Ullin Open Water Marina and mortgage rates. First, we'll revisit the DNR rate revaluation that has kind of set the stage for this conversation, and then introduce the Dave Ullin Open Water Marina Housing Administrative Policy that has been drafted based on our last discussion in May. Also introduce the mortgage and city dock rates that are proposed, and finally the council recommendation. To revisit, the city holds an aquatics land lease with the Washington State DNR, which makes the Dave Ullin Open Water Marina possible. This lease rate is revalued every 4 years, and that rate calculation is specified under the state code. That calculation has some specifics, but ultimately it's based on the assessed land value of the nearest upland parcel used for water-dependent purposes, and then also by the actual area used by the liveaboards. The last year's rate was around 36,000, and after this revaluation, it did increase to the maximum value of about 55,000, and we anticipate additional increases over the next year. Next slide, please. So based on the last discussion, and you have in your packet a draft administrative housing policy, and this policy shows a prioritization that is new for those on the wait list that income qualify at or below 60% Kitsap County area median income. The buoy would remain vacant for 30 days to allow for opportunity for someone that would qualify as low income. If it's still vacant after that period, then it could be offered to the next person on that wait list. Tenants would income qualify each year, and this would be made effective with the next mortgage agreement cycle on January 1st. There's a lot of information on the slide, but this is really to show that our current and future proposed mortgage rates are still below both the median Puget Sound liveaboard rate and also the HUD recommendation. So the HUD recommends that you spend no more than 30% of your annual income on housing, and 30% of the 60% AMI for a one-person household. That value is about 13,000 that's shown there per month. This also is showing that the standard rate would be based on just strictly the cost to operate the marina, which is the DNR rate, and the annual buoy cleaning divided by the total length of the vessels to get a $1 per foot rate, and introducing the low income rate that would offer a 40% discount of this calculated standard rate. Slide. And this also shows a table of what you see here, but in the dollars of today, it's $6.20 per foot, and what that would increase for the standard rate and hold for 2026. And then that 40% discount to continue in 2027, showing estimated rates. This also introduces a discussion about the city dock rate. With this deficit that is created by creating this discounted rate, we propose to go from $1.20 per foot per day for visitors visiting the city dock to $1.50 per foot per day. Next slide. So this table below shows the estimated revenue for increasing from $1.20 to $1.50, and how that compares to the estimated rate deficit by introducing the discounted rate. Next slide. So the city dock rate would be subject to the consumer price index, and the balance in 2026 is currently estimated to cover what could be a deficit in 2027, but of course could be revisited if the rate deficit exceeds the balance. And last, I'll leave you with the motion to direct the city manager to introduce a new low-income qualified mortgage rate at a 40% discount to the standard rate, and increase the city dock rate with the 2026 fee schedule update.
Thanks, Laura. Councilmember Hatopoulos.
Yeah, so I was really glad to hear the information from the city attorney, because I am a strong proponent of using as many as possible of these buoys for affordable housing and doing what that takes, including leaving them open for affordable housing. I just want to speak to that just really quickly as one of the council members who helped create the open water marina, who went with Hillary France to negotiate with DNR to get this option. The intention of this was to preserve a way of life that was very minimal in cost. It was to protect people who couldn't afford to live anywhere upland. And it's evolved over time. I understand. I'm kind of surprised where it's evolved to. But the fact is, the point was to create that as an option, not as an option for regular Bainbridge Island citizens who could afford market rate housing to live on the water. There's, marina options for that. It was specifically for affordable housing. So when I think about this as, one of the ways that we can meet those levels of affordability that we've been asked to show accommodation for, that are going to be so hard, that we all know will only occur if we build it, or some angel-like organization wants to come in and do it, then some or all, I would hope at least half of these could be set aside permanently. And that means, yes, that means that they may not be, it may be years between people utilizing them, but they're available. It creates availability. And I guess just for the public's benefit to understand, again, the city is right now faced with trying to work into our comprehensive plan required tiers of affordability, many tiers of which will never be provided by private developers. And we know that, and that's what we struggle with. And that's one of the reasons that we're building the housing that we're going to be building on Winslow Way and Olympic Drive. But we are not going to be able to build all the units that we're required to provide for, and we want to provide those units. So this is a way to provide some of them that would be creative, very Bainbridge, very unique. As we heard from someone who spoke today, there aren't a lot of these types of marinas around the country. So I would like to preserve them at the lowest level of affordability we feel is appropriate, and not have them filled by market rate.
Thanks, Councilmember Fantroy Johnson, and then Councilmember Murawaki.
I'm going to make the motion. And then you can finish discussing. I direct the city manager to introduce a new low-income qualified mortgage rate set at 40% discount to standard mortgage rate for liveaboards, and to increase the city dock day rate with the 2026 fee schedule update.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion, Councilmember Murawaki.
Thank you, Mayor. This is named the Dave Ullin Marina Memorial. And those of you who didn't know Dave, we're talking about Bainbridge Island and living light on the land. He lived light on the land because he's living on the water. And his carbon footprint must be like a bunny. I mean, he lived in the most Walden way possible. He's a real inspiration to our community because he did everything. He made his own tools. He would actually help a lot of people in the marina, but he lived so lightly. And the reason why we have this, and I'm glad Councilmember Hytopoulos is on the council at the time, because a friend of mine named Ted Spearman, who we named the Justice Center after, did this stuff pro bono out of his heart. He said these people have deserve to have a place to live. And this happens a lot on our island. A lot of people, not everybody, but many people moved into Eagle Harbor, loved its idyllic qualities, and they looked out in the harbor, goes, well, why are all those people getting to live out there for free with disdain rather than actually admiration? But so there was that friction within our community saying, you can't have people live there for free. We're paying our taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a rub going on. But braver angels in our community said, no, this is a viable part of our culture and part of who we are as Bainbridge Islanders. So I'm glad this is named after Dave Ullin. He's an inspiration for all of us. And anything we can do, and I'm with Councilmember Hytopoulos, anything we can do, keep all of these units as available and affordable as possible. And to the presentation, I notice it's about $200 a month, or it might even go up to 225, whereas a regular median Puget Sound liveaboard rate without electricity and the reviewed 12 marinas, that's $600. That's triple of what we're paying here. That's way below what other communities are charging their liveaboards. And then the Housing Urban Development recommends that it should be about $1,300 for a affordable housing unit when we can keep these at 200. So we're doing our part through public policy to keep this thing alive and keep it a viable part of our island. And so I'm hugely in support of the ordinance.
Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Quinlan.
I just have a couple of questions. A question for Laura is, has there been a waiting list for, has there been a surplus of need is I guess my question for moorage in the open water?
Was that the only question?
That's, the other question had to do with the rationale for this increase in the rate, the basic rate. I believe that's a DNR decision that we are obliged to abide by. It's not a jump that we have taken by ourselves.
Yeah. Just to let me talk about the rate, because that's given before, and then Ms. Sher can talk about the waiting list. We did receive notice that Department of Natural Resources had increased the rate. The methodology they used to increase the rate was to look at the nearest water-related upland assessed parcel. And then take a percentage of that to determine what our rate would be. The council had mentioned that they heard someone had successfully appealed that to DNR. We could not find that appeal. But what we did pretty well determine, and I will ask the city attorney to go through the methodology, is we did identify the parcel that DNR used. It's a parcel on the south side of Eagle Harbor. It's the nearest water-related upland parcel. We looked at the assessed valuation, and that had received a significant assessed valuation. But since we are not a property owner related, we have no standing to appeal that assessed valuation. So we could not appeal the assessed valuation, and that was the methodology used. Again, we had the city attorney look very closely at that.
That's right. The methodology is statutory. So it is not something that we can change or challenge the methodology. The statute provides that they take the assessed value of the nearest upland parcel. And we verified that this was the nearest upland parcel. They use the assessed value. Again, the city does not have the ability to challenge the assessed value of that upland parcel. And then they take a percentage of that, and that becomes the rent. I believe the percentage is 30%, but I don't recall off the top of my head. But they do then provide that, and the statute says that's what the DNR shall charge. And so that's where we're.
And charging on the basis of the length of the vessel, is that at our discretion, or is it the standard metric for setting rates?
Well, the statute simply deals with how the city is charged the rate to use the water, to use the area. How the city chooses to recover that from the residents in the liveaboard is not set by the lease or by the statute.
So again, so we can talk about, there is a waiting list. There has been one vacant buoy in Eagle Harbor now, and there may be an interest in an acceptable tenant for that, but that has been vacant for a period of time. But there's a waiting list
Well,
at this time.
Okay.
it would make sense to me to provide a waiting list if there are low income prospects, and maybe not encourage at the high end. But I'm not sure about that. I hear what my colleagues have said about preserving the opportunities for low-income people with the boats they want to use.
And through the chair, I heard two different comments referenced, or there's three. One is the idea that we always give priority to people at 6% or below for any opening, if that is available. Two is that even if that's not available, we still keep that exclusively for people at 60%. Or three, you establish a certain percentage that would be held exclusively, and even if there's a vacancy, those numbers would be held. So 100% would be held exclusively. So again, given in my mind, priority is given to all the boys at 6%, but held for a period of time. Whatever that period of time is a judgment call, but it could be 100%, so that if there's no one available, that boy would remain vacant. I will say that the police department, which monitors that, has some reservations about safety related to open spaces, but I'll just leave that at that. So you could reserve all of them for affordable housing or reserve a percentage. So, and that all would be consistent with what your discussion is.
Perfect. Councilmember Dietz.
Yeah, thank you. Think that, so what we're voting on right now, this motion, it seems like it's an open question as to how many of these units are set aside as affordable. And that's something we need to discuss and decide tonight.
No, what you have in front of you, you have the motion. Also, we referenced an administrative policy that would implement that.
Okay.
So the administrative policy that I'm referencing, and that's an attachment, I believe, in your agenda, is the program that was described to you by Ms. Shear. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to implement that. I think what you would want to implement at a minimum is to keep the 6% liveaboards at the same rate through 2026. Only increase their rates in 2027, and that creates the 40% pay differential.
Okay.
As we showed you, that is well below the housing cost burden that HUD suggests that people not be at greater than 30% of their income for housing. The other thing to keep in mind is we're just talking mortgage fees. People are still responsible for their own boat and maintenance on their boat and items like that. So their costs are going to be more than what we're showing, but at least we're keeping the mortgage fees as low as we can.
Okay.
The piece that you don't have to decide is whether you want to accept a proposal that we've offered to you being staff. All of them are held for a period of 30 days, or whether you want to have some other policy where you restrict all 100% to 6% or less, regardless of whether anyone occupies them or not.
Okay. Sorry. It sounds like there's a lot of options here, and what I want to make sure is if we're making, there's a motion that's been made and seconded, do we have a chance to make some policy decisions, the various policy decisions based on this motion, or are we somehow pigeonholed? I think, well, for me, one bottom line that I have is I know of the 16 liveaboards, 13 are folks who are fall under the affordable housing category, and I think I think we would all agree that we don't want to impact those 13. I think it's the question. But then, of course, there's how do we proceed now and into the future for that? So what I want is, I'm not sure if all the options, because it'd be nice to be able to see all those options and then have a full discussion. I don't want to make a vote on something that I'm going to say, wow, that wasn't quite what I wanted. Okay. If you want, in other words, I'm hoping that there's some flexibility here after following this, because I believe we're all in favor of doing this in some manner, but there's some directions that are still to be decided on.
Again, the literal motion doesn't reserve what percentage should be affordable housing. What the motion does do for you, it gives us direction to create the 40% discount, which I believe is what you want to do.
Yeah.
So you could vote on that, get that out of the way.
So if we do that, then we move forward. Okay, that's fine.
But if someone does, but you can vote against it. If you don't want 40%, that's,
Okay. And I'm sorry, just one other thing. A gentleman brought up laundry facilities and delivery of packages. So maybe that's a separate issue, but I would, I didn't realize there wasn't laundry facilities available for liveaboards, which that is not good. So I would like, I do as a separate matter, have some response to, are we doing anything to provide those services? Thank you.
So just same for me. We have a laundry problem here. That's one of those things. We are a laundry desert. And it's sometimes I think about it, it's environmentally, it's maybe better because laundromats use tons of water. But as an equity issue, to not be able to provide laundry services for folks who need it is like, it's odd, not to have a laundromat here. Yeah, we don't have one anymore. Yeah. So, but having one at what we call an open water marina, that would be a housing place, basically, if we're using it now for being able to use our affordable housing. So I think we need to figure that out. It's a long way of saying that.
through the chair, let me tell you some improvements that have been made over the last couple of years. One, a postal service is now available. Just a couple of years ago, postal service was not available. People had to get their regular mail at someone else's house. So now you can get postal service there. Parking, special provisions have been made for parking for people that have. So there is an evolution there, and where the council was originally, the direction was can we make an appeal to the state to forego the rent rate increase? That answer is no. Maybe we should have just stopped there and have you give us further direction. You can do that. We can schedule this for another meeting and you can think about what you would like, or we can take a field trip. We can delve more deeply into that. But maybe to roll back to what the council's original question was, is we did not find a way that we could appeal this successfully.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded. Oh,
She was.
Just a couple things. I don't understand if we do pursue having some of the buoys be designated as permanently affordable and permanently available that way and so that we do want to qualify those as some units for showing our commitment to that level of affordability, how we could go with a 40% or any percentage as the standard as opposed to connecting it to AMI. I have a couple questions. That's one of them.
You're affordable right now. We showed you a chart
Yeah.
that you don't have to make any changes, and by any standard, you would be affordable.
Because we're comparing to upland units. Is really just about anywhere we are.
Your market rate units fall within the affordable category.
Okay, just want to make sure. It seems like we should tie something somewhere to AMI, but if not, that's okay. And then I just wanted to say that to the extent that we would need to subsidize, because if we're not collecting the increased rate, I think I definitely want to assume that we would assume doing that when you think about the per unit cost over time of us not constructing and managing or whatever, any of these things or anything managing. I think that's the sort of thing that we should be able to fund through our, well, I'm not going to say the Affordable Housing Trust Fund because I don't even know what those things are at this point. Wherever we are maintaining our small amounts of funding that we put aside for those sorts of things, right? As opposed to capital projects. So I just want to be clear on that we're hitting the budget. And I also want to say that we need a laundromat. And I don't know that it's going to be associated with this, but again, it's a thing that comes up over and over and over. We all know we need it. It's a weird thing for a city to have to talk about. But it's a problem. It's a problem for everybody. It's particularly a problem for people of limited means. It's a problem when somebody's washing machine breaks. It's a problem. So I hope the city can at some point brainstorm how we could facilitate that.
if anyone's hearing us in public and wants to open a laundromat.
One more thing. I just want to pick back up on real quick, just to paint the picture on what Councilmember Morky was talking about. He was talking about Dave Ullin and talking about Ted Spearman. For those of you who weren't here or weren't paying attention, there was a horrible smear campaign against people in the harbor. It was a campaign by wealthy shorefront property owners to say that everybody out there was dumping their stuff in the water. And sure, maybe there were a couple, they were not by and large. They were people like Dave who were, you know, he was exceptional, who cared a lot about the environment. The bottom line is, this goes to why we're doing, not just because the state wants us to, why we care about affordable housing and what we talk about. We talk about equity and we talk about exclusion. This was a group of people who were going to be excluded if we hadn't stepped in. They're going to be chased off the island for being people of limited means with kind of beat up boats and some other things that people wanted to get out of the way. So I'm just putting a little more flavor into why this is such a cool way for us to address some of these units.
Morawaki.
Thank you, Matthews. Just to segue, since you brought it up, I do remember that it was very cruel. And, you know, we heard of NIMBYs and things like that. There's an acronym called FEARS, F-E-A-R-S, Fire Up Everyone Against Reasonable Solutions. And that's a tool that a lot of people use to put fear into people to not make reasonable solutions, but try to find reasons to be fearful so you can oppose whatever you don't want to happen or want to happen for that matter. So that's a lesson in that. And all of these discussions, I think clean laundry is a good idea too, but that's not pertaining to the motion. These are policy decisions down the line. The motion simply says, introduce a new low-income mortgage, low-income qualified mortgage rate set at 40% discount to standard mortgage rate for livable boards, and to increase the city dock day rate with a 2026 fee schedule. That's the only thing this motion does. Everything else we can talk about later. But all we're doing is setting aside this simple policy. They're going to have this fee schedule, and we're going to have this new day rate for those people who are here, you know, staying for the few hours, charging them more per foot. That's all this motion does. Everything else in discussion is very important. And I do appreciate the colleagues' discourse. It's great, but this is all we're setting. This is all the motion does.
Thanks, Councilor. Okay, we have a motion. Did we have a motion made? Yep, we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Any opposed?
okay, all right.
I kind of did.
Okay,
So through the chair, yes, this motion just did that. So the unresolved issue is how to implement that in terms of with the 16 boys that we have there. And we'll bring that back at a study session in the future.
thank you. Field trips are great. Okay. Where are we? Receive presentation of community arts plan. Oh, sorry, Councilman.
I just wanted to register my vote for that since I was kind of confused and asking for it.
I'm sorry, I thought we all,
Process wise, it's still acceptable for me to be registering my vote with the clerk. I didn't really get a chance to vote on that. Can I vote yes, city attorney, at this point? Ask the clerk to record a yes. Is that procedurally okay? I'm sorry. I didn't really get to vote because you guys were going and I asked a question and.
That's so funny. I thought you voted when he went.
I
like
was
that.
like, yes, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Rodopoulos. Okay, now we're on to the community arts plan.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the council's first review of the community arts plan, which was commissioned some time ago. Adam Nebzal will go ahead and introduce this, also introduce the firm Designing Local. Want to remind the council that the proposition here before you is to review the plan and then direct me to circulate it for comment to the directors and staff of the various arts organizations, and then return to the council at a future date that currently has not been identified.
Okay, Adam.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Adam Nebenshall, Management Analyst. So in June 2024, the City of Bainbridge Island selected Designing Local to develop a community arts plan. And during that period, in that summer, they conducted one-on-one interviews, pop-up sessions, and an online survey, which included responses from artists, local institutions, and community members. They also received guidance from a steering committee who, as we've seen this evening, some members are here tonight, and I really do want to thank them for their time and evenings that they spent being able to provide feedback over time. But as I mentioned, we have Jasmine Metcalf from Designing Local here this evening, so I'm going to just hand it over her to walk us through the plan.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me join you today. We're really excited to be presenting with you the outcomes of the Community Arts Plan and to start to move this forward with the local nonprofits and community partners and make this a reality in the community. Adam mentioned a little bit about our process to date, just for your understanding about how this process played out and what the phases were. We started project mobilization, getting the public-facing content like the website, engagement materials, and survey launched before coming to the community in June for our first visit and intensive 2-day discovery of the island. And so myself and principal and co-founder Josh Lapp were there just to meet with local organizations, see the presence of the arts within the community and really get to know the space. We also held a few focus groups during that time and began our in-person engagement, which included one-on-one conversations with stakeholders and beginning to circulate that survey amongst community members. Moving into the fall, we reported out on all of those items, which you will get a briefing of in the presentation in a few slides, and then close out our community engagement to really begin plan development throughout November, really the winter. In February and March, we started to circulate an action plan amongst our steering committee members. So that action plan has a lot of the recommendations that are in the back of this presentation, which are the action items as outcomes of this plan that built off of the community engagement. And that's really what brought us to this point today is we have a final plan document together with the narrative, the language, the definitions of different arts typologies, the community engagement outcomes. And really what we're looking to do is to start to circulate that amongst the community so that we can move this forward. So community engagement, as Adam mentioned, we did several strategies with the community to solicit input. We weren't able to get a true count, but we estimate that we spoke to over 200 people across community events. So whether First Friday events or during the Grand Old Fourth celebration, we had many, many people weigh in on a visual preference survey, which I have some results of here in a minute. We also conducted 26-hour-long individual interviews with members of the community. We spoke to leaders of nonprofits and their staff members. We spoke to a high school student who has participated in public art selection in the past. We spoke to some city council members at that point, additional city staff members, and those kind of interested in this space or intersecting with this space in their work or their areas. We also received 162 responses on the broader general survey that we circulated throughout the public. And then we held a series of focus groups. Some were topic specific, some were targeted towards internal departments within the city to figure out where there was overlap. But a big component of the focus group responses were directly targeted towards youth because we were seeing somewhat low participation on our survey. So I have some results too from the over 50 students, high school students that we spoke to throughout this process. So when it comes to our in-person community engagement, one of the things that we wanted to understand is where people want to experience the arts. We know there's kind of a concentration of assets within the creative district. The creative district is a wonderful asset that the community has and that you guys should continue to focus on and leverage. But we also want to know how we can provide access to people across the island. So people were asked to place stars on a map of the island and tell us where they wanted to experience the arts. And what we actually started to see as part of this is that people want to see a disbursement of assets and experiences. They want the arts to act as placemaking elements in the built environment and start to underscore the identity of the community and bring community stories into spaces. So we see a lot of focus on gateways to the community, green spaces within the island, and then some hot spots as these terminating points. So the bridge over the pass is one gateway, downtown Winslow is another gateway, and some other hotspots like Eagle Harbor, Bainbridge, Battle Point, Blakely. We also asked about plan priorities during these in-person and pop-up sessions. The top themes that came out of that were that the arts should invite exploration. They should encourage you basically to go to new spaces, have different conversations, learn about different things. There was a strong emphasis on visual art that was later reinforced in our stakeholder interviews. Another emphasis on performance art, and then an emphasis on community stories and creating opportunities for children. So those were the 5 biggest themes out of the pop-up sessions. When it comes to the survey, we asked some things about current perception of arts on Bainbridge Island. So when individuals were asked about their satisfaction with the quality of the arts on Bainbridge Island, it actually fell at about a 66% out of 100. So a little less than or like kind of a D plus, C minus. So we explored that a little bit more throughout stakeholder conversations. And really what we were hearing is there's a lot of presence, but of the arts, especially in the institutions that exist, but people feel like there's a lot of opportunity to really take the arts to the next level on Bainbridge Island, that there's a lot of talent, and that there's more that could be done. When it comes to whether or not people agreed that more support or increased support for community arts would make this a better place to live, you can see based on this graph down here on the left, many people said absolutely, many people rated it neutral. We landed about a 75% on that one. When it comes to highest ranked plan goals, something that I don't always see in other communities that I really felt like was important as part of this plan is that the #1 highest ranked plan goal was to create opportunities for artists. We heard a lot about access and things like that in our stakeholder interviews, paid opportunities, the fact that there is a scarcity for artists to make a living in this community. And so I think that played a role in this. Children were, again, a big focus as part of this question on the survey, bringing the community together. So social cohesion, connectedness, representation, all those things came out later in conversations and are reflected in the survey. Supporting nonprofit arts organizations also landed as a top 5 priority. And then exposing adults to the arts. As we explored that further in stakeholder conversations, a lot of people felt that there was a gap, particularly between high school and where you really kind of have made it as an adult and entered the community. And so they felt like there weren't a lot of opportunities to teenagers and young adults, is the additional information that we got from those conversations. We also heard about preferred public art typologies, including sculpture, functional, and mural as highest ranked public art types. And then when it comes to cultural activities, people really focused on things that they could either see or experience together as a community. So community arts events, public art, visual art, and the integration of the arts within parks and nature were some of the biggest themes of that question. I mentioned that we specifically targeted students as part of this to make sure that we were in alignment with the survey and with the stakeholder responses on what young people in the community want. So a few questions that we asked them during a survey deployed in schools was, what was the best thing about being a part of the community? Some of the big themes we heard about that was closeness, connection to nature, and what the natural environment offers on the island. The fact that people feel like the people and the island itself is very welcoming, very accepting of many people, that people show up and support one another, and that they feel that presence, they feel that support, that this is a community-oriented place, and that Bainbridge Island gets to feel like a small community and is a small community, but has access to a lot of things within the region. When it comes to ways that the arts can make living on Bainbridge Island better, students specifically asked for more arts showcases, so places that they could participate. And what I was really hearing from students, whether in one-on-one conversations or sifting through these verbatim responses, is they kind of want to be treated like adults in these art spaces. They want a big community event in which, artists of all ages are participating in, that they feel like they're invited to and welcome to. They also felt like art sparks creativity, it breeds more art, and it inspires the rest of the community. That Bainbridge Island has a great multicultural presence and that it should be embraced for the arts. And that by embracing the arts, embracing the many cultural stories, that this island and this presence can actually attract people from all over the world to come here and experience the arts. And so we also asked, how can this plan create good vibes on Bainbridge Island? And students said that the arts make us more relatable and more memorable to people, that it can convey that we are a place where everyone is and should feel welcomed, that it can provide people with opportunities to show who they are and have their stories reflected in the arts, that they're the backbone of culture and shared experiences within communities, that they improve our access and diversity, and that the quality of arts is fundamental to the community's identity, and that they wanted to be included in this. So when it comes to current perception of the arts on Bainbridge Island, if we look at stakeholders more comprehensively, and particularly in those 26-hour-long one-on-one interviews, things that we started to hear is that there's a really high-quality arts presence on the island that's evidenced in organizations like BEMA, BARN, BPA, that are these kind of landmark arts institutions in the built environment, and that people feel like that should be really leaned into. That there's, again, that scarcity of paid opportunities for artists, and that artist development should be a focus moving forward. That there's a clear desire for an elevated public art presence, for public artworks to be permanent, for there to be some of scale, and for them to play a placemaking role across the island. So expanding beyond downtown Winslow and having things like artworks and roundabouts and gateways to the community that are really telling that story of the arts presence being big here in the community. When it comes to the perceived value of arts to the community, people felt like the arts go far beyond aesthetics. It's about social cohesion. It's about bringing people together. It's about making the community closer knit, and also sparking conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, sometimes learning opportunities for people, that the arts are a great vehicle for that. That investment in the arts creates a crucial opportunity for artists to thrive, and it's a powerful tool to bolster the local economy. The arts are recognized as a catalyst for creating a stronger, more connected, and culturally vibrant Bainbridge Island, and really a lot of sentiments along those lines. When it comes to barriers to participating in the arts, which we want to ask people about, is it's really what's stopping them from either creating art, experiencing art, or fulfilling their missions as nonprofits. Some things that we heard were a lack of knowledge about arts-related opportunities. We hear this almost every time we do a plan in any community, is people don't know what's going on. We as a society have moved to a point where local newspapers, local radios, those things are a little less commonplace, and there isn't a true single source of truth in any community. You're kind of spread out between Facebook and word of mouth and what websites organizations have published. And so it may not be that the information isn't being published, it's just that people don't know where to go. That there is a competitive nonprofit environment. So this is a relatively small population with a lot of nonprofits operating. And so there's kind of that environment that can sometimes strain audience attention spans, which is common in communities like this. And then last, and one of the more difficult things that we heard were feelings of exclusion. So particularly from people of color that we spoke to as part of this process, feeling like they didn't see themselves reflected in audiences or reflected in spaces in order to feel like they could fully participate in these experiences. One of the great things that we always hear from stakeholders as well is ideas for projects and programming that they think the community would really enjoy. Some big things that came out of this were storytelling through the arts. So whether that's literary arts, things like poetry that are maybe placed in the built environment, or events that are focused around storytelling, or just public artwork that is thematic of things that relate to Bainbridge's Island's history, multicultural presence, all those things were really, really big as part of these conversations.
Jasmine, I'm sorry to interrupt. We are running a little bit late this evening. Could you wrap up in like 3 minutes?
Okay, yeah, I think so. And then I would love to offer additional time to come back to you and talk through anything in depth as well.
Yes, thank you. That would be great.
Yes, so I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. You guys can read the vision. I think it's just a nice summary of what we heard. There were some key pillars that we based a lot of these actions on. Phasing framework, we provided 0 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10, and then 10 to 15, just to guide how these priorities might be adopted. So adopt the revised public art policy is the first thing. There is a light policy language included within your existing public artwork program fund language. However, from a national best practice standpoint, there's some gaps in things like collection management, maintenance, artist selection, donation procedures. And so we've provided in Appendix A a comprehensive public art policy that addresses a lot of that, balanced against staff capacity and funding and what's really possible without something like an arts commission, which we're not recommending as part of this process. Additionally, we would like the city to take a moment to identify staff roles and responsibilities. So who really owns the public art program from the public side? You need to have a point of staff on this thing just to support the work that's already happening and the work that we hope would happen as a result of this plan. Create a city-appointed community arts committee. So right now you have a cultural funding task force. This might be an expansion of that task force role to help also guide the work plan for this. So the biannual community arts work plan would identify things within this plan and some of the project and programming opportunities that have been identified, and identify implementation priorities on a biannual basis. So it's a little bit of an expansion of the existing cultural funding task force responsibilities. Host an annual community arts summit. So there's a lot of nonprofits doing a lot in the community, and getting people together once a year with the city to give updates on impact, priorities, what people are doing, and just have better collaboration and communication felt like a really big priority as part of this process. Sponsor a community arts calendar. So Arts and Humanities Bainbridge right now is operating a community arts calendar, but we're still hearing from community members that people don't know what's going on. So the city taking a bigger role in promoting what information is out there and directing people to the resources that nonprofits have available so that people understand what the opportunities are for participation. Including an analysis of the local creative sector in a broader city economic study. I know that was an item that appeared on the agenda today. So just also considering what the creative sector is doing and what their impact is on the island, I think would be great information for you all to have and for the nonprofit community to have. Explore new funding mechanisms. I do want to make sure I talk about this today because I feel like this is one of the biggest most impactful ways that the city can make some progress as part of this. So existing cultural funding, you have sustained public sector allocations right now. So you have the biannual arts and culture fund, you have a lodging tax, you have a public art fund, and then you have a very active philanthropic community. Right now, the current annual public investment averages out in the last couple of years to just under 300,000, so 288,000. Common funding mechanisms nationally usually come from a couple different areas in each community. So sales tax measures, development incentives, state and public sector allocations. Sometimes these things are working together. But really a well-supported arts and culture ecosystem has funding for operations, capital for facility development, project-based funding and programming-based funding, which might be one-time grants, and then direct funding for artists and creative entrepreneurs to support those individual artists. When it comes to opportunities that you have available to you, the cultural access tax is a really unique method available in the state of Washington that I know a lot of other communities wish that they could have.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. We have to move on.
No problem.
Thank you so much. We will we'll go over the rest of this and then reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I don't know if I can go first. I'm not going to hog this time, but I made notes for 12 different points to make. I'm not going to cover all 12. There's a lot to discuss here. We've been given a good summary. I have read and reread the arts plan, and it's something to chew on, and it's something that I am eager to have studied and responded to by the Directors Forum and a number of, perhaps, I'm not sure of the scope of the Directors Forum that I understand is meeting on a regular basis. The executive directors of several organizations. It was silent for a long time, I think, but back in order. I had a very good conversation with the executive director of Bainbridge Performing Arts, and that got me started thinking that this group of invested individuals and experts really need to give us a reading of this plan and constructive criticism and responses to a number of the initiatives that are proposed here, because I do think that the process of creating a plan of this kind is never perfect. People get left out. People We just need to process it further. And I want other voices to be brought into the process.
We're pretty late on the
So-
agenda. I don't think we're going to have all
I'll
the
make a
time.
motion.
Well, I'll stop at that point then. There's a lot more to be said, some of it which has been given to us already in public comment, and I want to follow up on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Morawaki.
To that point, I'll make the motion, which simply says, I move to direct the city manager to circulate the draft community arts plan amongst executive directors and staff of Bainbridge Island arts organizations and return it to the council for adoption to future meetings. I'd also like to say you can expand that further to other groups that may be interested, not just these organizations specifically.
A
Okay.
second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion passes. Okay, next we are on to consider conducting a study for the feasibility of paid parking in the downtown corridor.
Yes, Mayor. I want to point out that this item is being brought to you as an extension of direction you provided from the council on January 21st, where you asked that staff look into the possibility of paid parking in the downtown area. As part of that direction provided by the council, this assignment was provided to the police department, who has been basically the controller or the shepherd of parking issues within downtown. And with that, the chief can provide a brief report on the response that we received in our proposal to you if the council wishes to follow up on looking at paid parking.
Good evening, Council. Joe Clark, Chief of Police. As you're all aware, the City Commission a Downtown Parking Strategies report that was published in 2018. That report provided 7 different recommendations, short-term and long-term nature. Some of those recommendations you've seen recently, we have implemented consistent time limits downtown. We increased availability of on-street parking through changes to our agreement for the boat trailer parking. And the bike corral provided additional emphasis on non-motorized transportation as recommended by the study. At that time in 2018, the report specifically noted that paid parking was not recommended due to the limited size of our parking availability downtown. No further evaluation of a paid system was done at that time. We contacted Rick Williams Consulting, as they were part of the original study, and asked them to, what they could do in terms of the feasibility of updating this report to address paid parking considerations. What they propose is developing a revenue forecast model that will, help us evaluate the cost to install, maintain, and operate a pay-to-park system while generating reasonable net revenue for the city, and what the practicality of that would be. The proposal is there before you. Their intent is to charge for actual hours and expenses not to exceed $13,100. And they should be able to provide us the information we need using the data from the original report.
Steve, Councilmember Morawaki and then Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor Matthews, and thank you for your work, Chief Clark and administration. I've been receiving a lot of emails and having discussions with folks as well as testimony tonight. I don't know if this is really necessary. I know we need to have revenues. I don't know if this is the right way to do it. We do have to make sure that our downtown parking is fair and allows our businesses to thrive and visitors to enjoy our community. One person pointed out to me, she is a minimum wage worker. State minimum wage is $16.66, as you hopefully know. And she says, $13,000 is 5 months of my salary before taxes. For a $40 million organization, $13,000 is really nothing. But to people we serve, and we just had a very long discussion on trying to get together a dozen or more affordable places on the water. We got to keep that in mind. It's not a huge fiscal impact, but it's money that could be spent in other ways. So I'm not ready to look into this.
Let's try to keep comments pretty brief on this because we're behind. So, and if everyone will want to say so, Councilmember Schneider and then Councilmember Hightower.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think one thing that would be really helpful is once we have information about what possible revenues are, I think we need to tie any further discussion of this to what we might want it to fund. And so my personal vision, and this is just me so far, but I'd love to get other folks potentially around this, is that we help to fund a circulator with this. And so one of the things to that goal that I would love to see included in this study would be where some potential park and rides are that could be served by a circulator. So I don't know if these two items can be connected, but I really hope that they could be. And some back of the napkin projected revenues are a lot higher than I thought they would be. So thank you.
Councilmember Haytopoulos.
Well, first, I do want to thank the city manager for bringing this forward, because for any of us who might at this point decide we don't want to pursue it, we should certainly acknowledge we asked for this, and I was one of them. I'm not feeling inclined right now to proceed with this. It's not because it's $13,000. That's just, I completely understand why for any of us, that seems like an awful lot to think about for something like this. But as city council members, we know that's not that much for this sort of thing. And in our budget, it's a very sensible price. I don't feel like this is the right time for us to explore this. I think at some point we probably will. I think most places are moving towards paid parking. I think we have some unique concerns. We'll always have the unique concern of having the important, having TNC downtown is hard. It's the other areas that are really meant for, honestly, no, I shouldn't say that, I should be careful, which are very tourist oriented. It's kind of a different situation, but places like Port Townsend, for example, I think have moved to this. I'm kind of all over the place. We're going because what happens when we go too late. So cute small towns that are precious to people are doing this, and it is an important revenue source. But I think that given, the issues of it actually being a functional place for us as well, and I just don't think honestly politically this is the right time to do this.
Thanks, council member. I'll go over it. So not now. That's it. Not here or not now. That's probably keep it quick. Councilmember Dietz.
Okay, well, I won't be that quick, but I'll try and be quick. Thank you. Well, I'm a definite no on for doing this for at least two reasons. Frankly, at this point, no study is necessary if we're interested in paid parking. The city of Poulsbo will be initiating paid parking in 2026. Let's see how it goes with them, with our neighbor jurisdiction, before we do anything like that. And the second reason is, frankly, this does nothing for help our businesses. And let's face it, folks, these are uncertain times, and we need to be doing things that help our local businesses, not hurt them. I can't imagine how paid parking would help them. So we have talked about, and I have heard often, the need for a directional wayfinding system. If we're going to spend any money like this, let's spend money on something that helps the businesses, a directional wayfinding system. I'm not proposing that tonight, but I am saying a definite no for paid parking study. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Dietz. And also just to clarify, because I did see some comments about this did not come from the city manager. This was no idea of his to come from Coronado, or he actually counseled us the other way with some advice. So just in case there were any misconceptions that this was something pushed to us by the city manager, it was not. Okay, so was there a motion or anything we need to make? Just no action. So we'll just take no action on that. Okay, next item on the agenda is introduce ordinance 2025-9 related to building code requirements.
Yes, the Director of Planning and Community Development will provide you a presentation on some updates to building code requirements which require code changes related to flood zone management. I will say that there is no proposed map changes. In terms of, if the council is aware that FEMA flood zone maps, which typically require property owners to secure flood insurance to protect their mortgage holders, there is no map changes proposed. It is just language changes to be consistent with directions of FEMA.
Good evening, City Council. Patty Charnas, Planning and Community Development. Thank you, City Manager. I'm going to be really brief because we are over time. So before you tonight is an ordinance that proposes updates to our building code and flood hazard code, which is part of Title 15. Title 15 confines itself totally to buildings and construction. And you'll see here sections that you'll see in about every local government who administers a permitting and a construction program. Tonight, we're going to be going over some very small but important clarifications in our building code. And of course, the updates like the city manager was describing to our flood damage prevention code, which is in concert with state and federal requirements. Let's look at that first. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, has for a very long time been the federal agency with principal oversight on floodplain management. States, in turn, designate state floodplain managers who carry out the federal rules by ensuring local governments adopt local development codes that ensure flood hazard risk reduction and certain building requirements to address the historic and existing high level of construction in floodplains, riverways, floodways, and on our coasts, especially applicable to me. The bottom line here is that this update happens periodically, and this time it's to keep our eligibility under the National Flood Insurance Program. So we got a visit called a community assistance consultation from the state floodplain administrator. She was very good. She worked directly with us. It was a really coordinated and cooperative work that she reviewed our code and then helped us redline and insert new definitions that really were just updating old definitions, clarifying some terms, and confirming some record keeping that we already do through our SmartGov system. So again, bottom line, it helps us keep our eligibility under the National Flood Insurance Program, and we're pretty pleased with this very straightforward update. They're not always this way, as city manager kind of inferred. Finally, the updates to, well, here are some examples. Real structures on our island. Most of our flood hazard areas are located on our saltwater shorelines. And without any surprise, those are areas like Pleasant Beach, Eagle Harbor, and especially Point Monroe. Finally, the International Residential Code, which we implement through rules of the State Building Code Council, has well-described portions regarding building permit expiration that we discovered needed clarification. So now before you tonight is language that makes the building code expiration language exactly how it should be as it appears in the direction under the IRC. And this will provide better clarity for our permit specialists, our staff, and importantly, our customers. Thank you very much for your time tonight. And there's a motion in your packet for your consideration.
Thank you, Director Charnitz. Clarence, Councilmember Morawaki had already hit the
Go
button,
for it.
but the way that I knew what you were doing. Councilmember Morawaki.
I move to forward ordinance number 2025-09, amending Bainbridge Island Municipal Code Title 15 relating to the requirements for building code and flood damage protection to the next city council business meeting for consideration for adoption.
Motion made by Councilmember Morawaki, seconded by Councilmember Dietz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think people get silly after 8:30. Next is introduce ordinance 2025-19, amending Bainbridge Island Municipal Code to allow leasing city property.
Mayor, in interest of time, I'm just going to provide a brief explanation of this item. When the council adopted the new temporary sign ordinance based upon the recommendation of staff, you included the following language. Sandwich board signs shall not be located within public right of ways or on public properties owned by the city of Bainbridge Island. That was adopted. What was swept up to this was one unintended consequence. That unintended consequence was city leased property. For example, the History Museum is on city-owned property. Farms on Day Road are on city-owned property. The intention is that organizations on city-owned property, whether it be the Senior Center, History Museum, Day Road Farms, would also be allowed, just like any other person is, to put sandwich board signs consistent with the code on their property. So what we are proposing is additional language that would go beyond what I just read to read, except that sandwich board signs may be located on city-owned properties by tenants who are currently leasing such properties from the city, where the city consents to such location, and all other requirements of this chapter are met. And that is our proposed fix. Again, it was unintentional to include all of the city's leased properties, and we'd like to correct that now.
Councilmember Morawaki.
As a housekeeping measure, and people think that the museum owns that property, they don't. It would be simply like putting it on anybody else's property, so it's not a special deal. I move to forward ordinance number 2025-19 for the adoption at the July 22nd City Council regular business meeting.
Second.
I just have, I couldn't go with it, but just quick question. What is the, what sort of signs would they have? I'm so confused, like,
Pumpkin patch.
oh,
An A-frame sign says pumpkin patch, an A-frame sign that would say farm tours, an A-frame sign that would say
Yeah.
museum open.
okay. So what makes them different than all the rest of us who want their sign?
In that a business could put a sandwich board sign on their property.
On our own property?
Correct.
Done. Okay.
In their particular case, they are leasing property from the city.
Ah,
And so on their leased property, we're saying that they could put a
okay.
sign.
So now we can all put them on our own property.
People can put them now on your own property, again, with a permit.
Okay.
Well, those are the other codes,
Okay.
but you still cannot place them on other locations, for example, on sidewalks or plazas or the street. But if you're leasing property from the city and with the city's permission, you can put an A-frame sign on the leased property.
Okay. Oh yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, next one is communications. Consider request from Planning Commission for direction.
This item is placed on consistent with the council's policies that you be advised of decisions made by the planning commission. This is not quite a decision, but we felt that this was important to advise the council as soon as possible. The planning commission has two motions which they expressed be transmitted via the planning director. That's why you have it on this agenda. As you can look at these motions and you can read them for yourselves, but the suggestion is that not be deliberated tonight, but that you go ahead and place it on your agenda for July 22nd. And again, I'm sorry about the typo for July 8th on the previous item. I'm supposed to catch those things. But that this go on the July 22nd agenda and that you deliberate that. Also, a reason for maybe wanting to deliberate that, as you know, we have retained the services of a special consultant to help us move through the update process. And I believe that consultant may have some suggestions related to the council's consideration and response to the planning commission, which the planning commission is asking for direction.
Thank you, city manager.
Mayor,
We could, so the deputy mayor.
I move to acknowledge the request from the planning commission of in the two motions, and to schedule council deliberation and provide direction at the next regular meeting on July 22nd.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And, oh, sorry.
Just looking at particularly the second one, I just want to be really clear that this council is going to need a lot of education to understand the question intelligently. Right? It's not something that we're all going to be we're not all equally following the planning commission. We're not all equally going to be able to understand what the question is. So I'm expecting that staff is going to provide adequate information, or maybe we have some planning commission share some thoughts.
So through the chair, I believe there's a lot of complexities in both of these propositions that are proposed to the council. The hope would be that we would provide some context to the council without tilting the table in one direction or another in terms of the council's response, but to provide context for the council. And that's what we'd hope that we can do.
Okay, Councilmember.
I just want to say, I think what's so important is that I certainly want to honor their request for guidance. What we don't want to do is kind of muck around and provide some sort of like tight guidance that kind of pushes them in a direction that is ill-informed because we haven't tackled these things the way they have at this point.
So I think if we watch that meeting, it will become
That's good
really
to know.
clear.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, we are adjourned. I always get the urge. Oops.